controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation
And
Room.
believe it or not, it's Friday. Just like that.
Snap of the fingers, twist of the tail, shimmy of the waist.
Those are many things.
And it's Friday.
Me, the thing that I actually caught was that shimmy of the waist. Shimmy. Yes.
Shimmy of the waist is the same as twerking.
Well, I do not know. No, shimmy is like, shake it up.
Okay. Sawa. Happy Friday, Nduoko.
Happy Friday.
Where are you going after this? Eh? Are you doing a Tembea Kenya? I mean, when you see someone wearing such a hat, they are going somewhere.
I have this good friend. His name is Charles. And he gave me this hat. So I decided, today I shall rock it.
People who have friends.
I look like a cowgirl.
What was the message?
I raised my hat to you, Ndu. That's what it was.
Okay. Okay.
Like?
Kinda.
Don't sit on the fence. No fence sitting, Eric.
Okay.
Yes or no?
It's
Black
okay.
or white? There's a lot of something.
It's okay.
For a moment.
You don't have someone ask you something and you don't want to be committed.
You don't want to be definite.
Yes. You constrict the voice,
Yeah.
the vocal cords. You tilt your head to one direction, move it back and forth, sideways to sideways. And then it goes, yeah. Yeah. Now, essentially, I've been to a guy figure it out. I actually don't.
Yeah, me.
This thing, but
Leave
I'm
me out of
really
this.
trying to be polite. Yes.
Leave me out of this. How are you, City?
I am very well, thank you, sir.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Good to be seen, as you say. It is a lovely morning.
Good morning, CT.
Morning, Ndu. Trust you are well.
You do? You trust? That's good. Okay.
It is one of these. It's a combo. It's a statement come question.
Okay.
Trust
Nobody
you.
really expects the answer.
Not really trust you are well. You can respond, but I have said it. Meaning, it's like I wish you well.
Okay.
Yes, it is my wish that you are well.
Thank you, CT. That warms my heart.
Okay.
Okay. A warm heart is a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, there are those who say, in the land of Proverbs, in the land of this continent, a warm heart can also translate into warm legs and warm feet.
And warm feet.
That's the beauty of Proverbs. They don't have to make sense.
Or you can just warm your heart.
If it sounds deep, it's okay.
If it sounds deep, especially the more confusing it sounds, the better.
The better.
What on earth is this thing?
Okay. What is all about?
So it's a proverb, yes, okay. But also remember that a lot of the things that we consider to be sayings of the wise are experiential, right? You encapsulate it in a sentence, but essentially you're trying to make sense of something that, should I say, has traversed time and has come to have a very specific and a very pointed meaning. Now, and sometimes the real fun is now when that meaning is completely lost or missed. So,
Safi sana.
Maridadi.
Very good. Very, very good. Karibuni nyote katika kipindi cha leo. Hii leo tutazungumzia mambo kadha wa kadha. Mjadala wa kwanza tutazungumza na anayegombea kiti cha urais nchini Tanzania. Jina lake ni Tundu Lissu. Chama chake?
CCM.
Hapana.
No.
Chama cha
Hapana. Chama cha Mapinduzi ni chama cha Magufuli. Chake kinaitwa, why do you forget that It's coming.
Yes, think of a newscaster, a Kenyan newscaster whose name begins with CH.
Chadema.
Chadema.
You? Good.
Which Kenyan newscaster has a name?
Chamwada.
Chamwada.
Oh, Chamwada. All right. Yes. And then in the second hour, we talk about teen pregnancies, especially during this COVID-19 season.
Yep.
Many reports have come or released, many questions asked, and then we'll be seeking answers to those very many questions. Then we also have to talk about this place of religious organizations in this country when you have this current political and corruption and everything else talk. And because we've been having conversations with Christian leaders, today we want to have a conversation with a Muslim leader. Haya yote ni katika kipindi cha leo. But let's begin where we always begin, and this is with tracking the COVID-19 numbers in the country. Yesterday, Dr. Rashid Aman was not in Nairobi. He was somewhere. Where was it? Kitale? Was he? Somewhere.
We will get to that in a bit.
Okay.
But if we're going to look at
The numbers.
We had an additional 214 cases. Just a minute, and let me just confirm if that number is actually right. Yes. Yesterday, there were 271 cases, I beg your pardon, reported in Kenya. And again, unfortunately, 3 new deaths. So 271 cases, 3 new deaths in the country, taking the total number of coronavirus cases in Kenya to 40,178 and 751 deaths. And still looking at those cases rising in particular counties. Nakuru still being looked at. Again, Nairobi with some of the highest cases. And the call continues to be that, everybody make sure that they're following these measures and try to stay within those rules. Okay? CS Rashid Aman stayed within that and continued to ask that people just really be careful because they are seeing a rise in these cases. Okay?
So positivity rate is going up.
Yes. Now
4.5, was it 4.4?
it was 4.4, and then the week after it was 4.4. It rose to 7, and now it's at 10.08. Okay?
Hiya.
And
Okay.
from all indications, what they're saying is that, from what they're seeing, it might rise. So we'll wait and see, asking people to still stay within the measures.
Yeah.
Well, remember, I'm divided between two thoughts. An opportunity that we have to take responsibility for our own lives, because the alternative is, what more can the government actually do in terms of communicating and ensuring that people actually stay safe? And I think leaving it into the hands, you decide whether you want to stay safe or not. But this is it's one of those rare situations where your safety is everybody's safety, and everybody's safety is your safety.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is where now the government comes in
Yes, it is.
as the overall body that then ensures everybody's safety. Yeah. If you think about it, the people that we've talked to here who have talked of their COVID experience, none of them tells you that they were reckless or careless.
No.
And they're people that we believe. I mean, they're people that we can vouch for in terms of personal responsibility. They tell you, I just don't know. I was very careful. I remember this one time that we had lunch. Remember the KMPDU Secretary General saying the only thing I can think of is we had lunch with my friends.
Yeah.
And we still maintained social distance. We were wearing masks as we were approaching the place, as we were leaving. The only time we didn't have the masks on is when we were eating. And that's the only thing I can think of, because one other person from that gathering also tested positive. So that is it. If you think about the provost of the All Saints Cathedral, he could not really pinpoint a moment where he was in a crowded place or any of that
There's
sort.
really something interesting about the mind. The mind is also very selective in what it recalls. And sometimes memory are not very reliable. That's just the truth. And if you are a pastor or you're a doctor, you honestly cannot track the people you come across. You honestly cannot.
Right.
You cannot. Even if you want to, even if you try. Because you will talk about the things you remember, But how many people do you remember meeting in a day? And how many people do you meet in a day whom you actually don't remember at all?
True, many.
Now, these are people, I choose the two professions because these are people whose jobs require you to meet a very large number of people at any given time. So, much as they may try to recall, it is not possible.
But no, the point is their own personal responsibility.
That's what I'm saying.
Do they recall at any point where they were not wearing a mask as they were meeting people? Do they recall not washing their hands? Do they recall, they you've done everything that you possibly could do, but you still got COVID.
That's what I'm saying. You see, the thing is, given their jobs, one could argue that they were already on the front line, given what they do.
Yeah.
Now, anyone who goes to a workplace or anyone who leaves their house, it's like every time you leave your house and in the presence of other human beings, you are already putting yourself in the front line. And that's why church services were at one time completely banned, the physical attendance of church services. And then the numbers were limited, funerals, weddings, for the same reason.
Yep.
When you consider that we have medical science and research has not quite determined just how infectious someone who is asymptomatic is. And many people are asymptomatic. They may be COVID positive, but there's nothing to tell. Like they themselves have no clue and they don't feel. So unless they test, they will not know.
They will not know.
Yeah.
Well, if we're looking at the global numbers now, just yesterday, and this is like, cumulative around the world, yesterday there was a total of 348,630 cases. These are the global numbers, and in terms of deaths around the world, we're looking at 6,000 plus deaths yesterday alone. 60,000, deaths alone yesterday. The United States still continues to grow in terms of COVID-19 numbers, 7,833,763. We heard yesterday that the next presidential debate is going to be a virtual debate.
Yes.
It will not be in person, obviously citing COVID-19 issues. And we're going to see India tip off to 7 million. You can imagine 3 weeks ago, India was at half the number that the United States is at. By the time we get to Sunday, India will have 7 million cases of coronavirus. By the end of today, it's possible that they will be inching closer and closer to the United States. We understand that they have 3 times the number of in terms of population, almost 4 times. However, those numbers are rapidly growing in India. With 6,903,812 cases, they've recorded 106,521 deaths. Okay, we still continue to see heightened numbers, whereby Spain a couple of weeks ago was at 10th. Now Spain is climbing again and has gone to 6th position in the world with 884,000 cases, 381. And if we just look at the numbers that they're recording on a daily basis, just yesterday, even though it has dropped in a couple of weeks, in a couple of days, I beg your pardon, Spain recorded 5,585 cases yesterday. And they also recorded 126 new deaths. So those numbers are increasing again, and we're seeing the graph take an upward trajectory in terms of COVID-19 cases. And this has affected quite a number of countries in that part of the world.
Okay. Just like you said, okay, so City, by the way, you were saying 2 issues conflicting in your mind. One was, what more can the government do, because and the issue of personal responsibility. What was the other one?
Well,
or was that it?
Government personal
people.
Responsibility.
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Those two. And really the debate here is, do we actually understand what our personal responsibility is? Do we have we internalized this thing about COVID, and that your responsibility reflects very directly on everybody else.
On everybody else.
Yes.
That's the thing.
This is one disease that enjoins everyone. No one is left out.
No matter what you do. You protect yourself, others are protected.
No one.
You're irresponsible, then others are in danger.
Oh, they're definitely in danger. Case in point, if you just look at those who surround the President of the United States, his key advisors, almost everyone who's in close proximity, including his wife,
has
tested positive.
Right.
If you are looking for a case to understand how this thing works, you have it.
There it is.
right there.
Yes.
All right, so let's do some bit of English lesson after we come out of this break. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. 6:15. Let's look at the weather. And then we look at today's proverb and the big headlines this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to
Howdy,
Spice
everybody.
FM.
It's Friday, and let's look at what the skies look like. It's mostly cloudy in Nairobi at 16 degrees. We'll see highs of 27 and lows of 13. Nyeri is mostly cloudy at 15, going to highs of 25 today, and rainy conditions expected later on. Nakuru will experience thunderstorms in the afternoon with highs of 24 and lows of 13. Currently partly cloudy at 13 degrees. Eldoret is partly cloudy at 13, going to highs of 22 and lows of 12. Thunderstorms in the forecast going into the weekend. It's going to be a rainy weekend in Kisumu. It's currently mostly cloudy at 20 degrees. Kakamega 16 degrees and mostly cloudy. 25 degrees the high and 16 the low with thunderstorms expected later on. It's going to be a wet day in Mombasa as well. Partly cloudy at the moment. Highs of 29 and lows of 24. Partly cloudy in Malindi at 26 degrees, going to highs of 29 and lows of 25 with rain expected also in the coastal town. Kampala is 19 and mostly cloudy, highs of 26 and lows of 18, and a chance of rains there later. It's clear skies in Dar es Salaam today, 23 degrees, and it's going to rise to a high of 32 and coming down to lows of 23. Clear skies at 12 degrees in Johannesburg, highs of 22 and lows of 12. Lagos, again, it's thunderstorms this morning scattered throughout the southwest of Nigeria, highs of 29 and lows of 23. Hazy in Beijing as they get into afternoon this Friday. Highs of 24 and lows of 9. The sun will come out later on as it dips. And in London, clear skies at 8 degrees, going to highs of 14 and coming down to lows of 6. The winter months are checking in the Western Hemisphere. We'll see some rain in London as well. Paris is warm this day, however, at 15 degrees, going to highs of 16 and coming down to lows of 9. There will be some showers later. And New York is clear at 14 on Thursday night. It'll get to highs of 19 on Friday and lows of 11.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
It's
FM,
20 minutes after
Nairobi.
6. So, the English pronunciation lesson. H-U-T-H-A-T.
H-U-T-H-A-T. Hut and hat. Hut is the dwelling that you live in. Hat is the clothing that you put on your head. Hut.
Yeah, this is now
It
where
has, if you look at the phonetic spelling of hut, it's got what you call an egu on the top of the U, the 2 dots, so it's pronounced hut. Phonetically, that's how you pronounce it. Hat takes the short sound of the letter A. I won't forget.
Sawa basi.
well, to understand it, think of another word. My favorite. Bird. Bad. Bud.
Bird.
Yes. Bad. Bud.
It's a very bad thing to do
Yes.
when you watch the bird fly.
Yes.
Going over to pick a flower bud.
Yes.
Pick up flower bud.
Yes. And the eagle is a bad.
It's a very bad. So, Robert Cross likes your H-U-T,
I don't have one.
but Brian Otieno likes your H-A-T. Okay. But Yegon says you look like a tolly.
Yegon is saying that Atwoli is beautiful.
Oh, city. Man like you.
Right, you're gone. Really? Hati, hey, Ndu. Today you look like a twirl.
I think that one was for you to understand that Yegon
He's watching.
is watching.
Yegon is saying, Nemekuona. All right, Yegon, how are you? Good morning. Hope, are you still in Nandi or are you on your way back to these other parts of the world? No, put on your hat.
Okay, I will. As I step into my hut. Okay.
Okay. Siti Muga, today's proverb.
Wood touched by fire is not hard to set alight.
Okay.
Wood touched by fire is not hard to set
alight.
alight.
What are
If you
talking
don't
about?
hot, he hot.
What are you talking about?
If you don't hot, he
There are
hot.
countries, there are regions on this planet that have fire season. Others have winter, others have, some of them have fire season. And you even know, come this particular period, there'll be wildfires. raging.
Chunga.
And again, it coincides very directly with change in weather,
Yep.
change in climate.
Yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
temperature.
Okay. I can't wait to hear the context of this one in today's times, or why you decided to go with this particular one today.
It,
But
it
let's
was,
look at the
it was
headlines.
actually number 5.
It was number 5.
Just happened to be number 5.
Then you decided.
Now, if events have conspired to give it more meaning than I intended, then it's the events that have conspired.
It's the events.
Yes.
All right. We'll understand the events. Let's look at the headlines.
Many things happening.
Many, right?
Yes. Where do we start? Okay. All right, let's look at the standard. Since there was a cabinet meeting yesterday anyway, President chairs cabinet meeting as led by Matiang'i, formed to monitor and enforce stringent security measures to curb political violence and hate speech. Ruto forced to cancel rally in Nyeri County after police dispersed gathering waiting for him. And the headline is that Ruto feels the wrath of the state. Major Daily is covering this story today, but if you look at the details of it and exactly what happened. So the president chaired a cabinet meeting yesterday, all right, and had some things to say according to this report. But we understand, if we go to Nyamira, first of all, we understand that they foiled plans. The police yesterday foiled plans by Deputy President William Ruto to conduct a fundraiser for border operators in Nyamira. This was set to be the second time in as many weeks that the DP would visit the region as he popularizes his 2022 presidential bid. Everything had been set, with Ruto's ground troops mobilizing residents to attend the function at Nyangonge Primary School grounds. However, no sooner had the program started than heavily armed police arrived in several lorries and the venue turned into a battlefield. So now this is what was happening on the ground in terms of that particular problem, all right? And there was a cabinet meeting where it is said, or it is reported, that he was either told to leave or, go with the times. And the times that we're talking about now is that chaos will not be allowed, incitement will not be allowed, this kind of violence that we see from political meetings will not be allowed. So he cancelled his meetings for Kisi based on what was happening in the morning, and it was said that this particular meeting that took place in State House was was what made him cancel this particular meeting. All right, and if we look at the report in The Nation, sources said that cabinet colleagues pressed the DP over what they described as divisive campaigns in which he attacked public officials and his allies demonized some of his colleagues in government. The cabinet session at State House, described by sources in attendance described by sources in attendance as the most tense in recent times, and which came on in a week where chaos...
You want to start again? Start from the top, from the headline.
On your
Storm in cabinet.
Get set.
Go. Okay. So the cabinet session at State House, described by sources in attendance as the most tense in recent times, and which came on a week in which 2 people were killed in chaos ahead of a fundraising meeting attended by the DP in Murang'a on Sunday. A source said the meeting essentially marked a drawing of the red line over rebellious activities by the DP, who was roundly condemned for fighting his own government. Some CSs reportedly dared him to quit instead of rocking the boat from within. He reportedly insisted that his missions to empower youth, women groups, and small business was not politicking, a defense he stressed again publicly yesterday while announcing the cancellation of his meetings planned in Kisi for today, hours after the police broke up another he had scheduled in Nyamira.
Wow.
So there are many things happening. Cabinet sat.
Actually was sitting there and telling the deputy president,
You.
leave, boss. We can't continue living like this.
We can't. So, and apparently he was,
And there he was saying, no, but guys, not but guys. If you want
Stop
to
it.
stop it.
he was essentially held by the thick and
But
curlies
what
and
have
said,
I?
look, my friend,
No, listen.
I'm actually empowering the youth. No, it's because you're empowering the youth, but guess what? As we speak, or an hour before we were having this conversation, there are people in Nyamira where skirmishes had already begun in anticipation of your meeting.
It would be
And police
interesting.
were then,
It would be
poured
interesting
onto
to
the
see a
streets
video
to
clip
stop
of
this.
that meeting. I mean, to see whether really...
If this is why I was very clear. It is reported. It would be interesting to see cabinet ministers saying,
Tell me,
my friend.
when was the last time we actually saw this sort of activities? I mean, forget these recent times where the activities seem to be directly related to the deputy president. But in a time gone by, when did we see the police acting in such a manner? And what group of people or group of Kenyans did they target?
Opposition.
Yes, exactly. It was wrong then. It is wrong now.
For police to do this? Or
Yes, yes. Now, I say this tongue in cheek because the security forces may be armed with information that us simple Kenyans, us simple mortals do not know. And so they have reason. But coming from a backdrop of what happened in Murang'a, one could even say, look, they did not want to have a repeat of such a thing.
Yeah.
Okay? When this was clearly a fundraiser, not even a church function. If that happened in a church function, then surely if it is a meeting, which is essentially a political rally, come fundraiser, the likelihood of there being a problem exists. So one could say it's justified. But if we now go to the discussion of fundamental rights that people have to assemble, to meet, you could argue that indeed, even prior to this constitution that we now have, which entrenches these people, these fundamental rights, it was not deemed right then. It cannot be deemed right now. Yes. Because, yes, you can move to avert a possible problem, but you can also move to ensure that there is security and that the problems don't arise. The two sides of the coin come into play here. Yes.
Takes us back to yesterday's conversation when we were saying, yes, so the NSAC has come up with these new orders and said, if you want to have a meeting, you must inform the local police chief. These MPs who were organizing this meeting were saying they had already informed the local police. So if you've already done that and you're present throughout the meeting, followed everything else, why would the police disrupt you? Which brings up to the point of, did it carry any weight, the order by the National Security
There's nothing
Advisory
new
Committee,
they're being asked to do.
which was being endorsed by the cabinet yesterday? So what exactly are we saying? Are we saying don't hold meetings, which is what you were saying yesterday? Be very clear. If you don't want meetings to be held, just say do not hold a meeting.
And no, everyone across the political divide, no one holds meetings. Full stop.
Yeah. Or if there's a reason why you then say that, yes, we shall allow you to have this meeting. However, in the event we have this another information, we shall inform you and we shall stop the meeting.
If you then want to give it the political twist that we Kenyans like giving these matters, then this again I found puzzling. Today is a day for me to be puzzled. Okay. One of the things that made opposition politics so popular in this country was what the government did.
Yeah.
And they're doing it all over again.
That makes the opposition popular.
Yes, they do, because the moment there is police, and police activity in Kenya is incomplete if there's no tear gas.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Now, the moment that happens, you now enter the realm of drama. Okay? Then you give the people whose meeting has been tear-gassed and the people therein an opportunity now to speak very strongly about being nyanyaswad and being this and being the other.
Why we need to liberate you from such.
Exactly. And this is the opportunity we now have. Okay? And then the word development will be thrown in, and the word empowerment will also be thrown in. And then, most of all, the word youth will also be thrown into that entire discussion.
Yep. Nafasi za ajira.
Yes. Opportunities lost. Opportunities tear-gassed, in short. So,
funny one. This morning I got up and I saw a tweet yesterday at almost 11:30 by the Deputy President, from the Deputy President's Twitter handle. Now, I don't know whether it's him who was tweeting or one of his orderlies. Going with the headline in today's Nation, which says, "Storm in Cabinet, Ruto told to quit." The Deputy President tweeted, "Cabinet secretaries challenging who? ? To do what? ? And then laughing emoji, laughing emoji, laughing emoji. Hii itumiwe kufunga matumbo na mara. Hii gazeti itumiwe kufunga nyama. Basically just dismissing that entire headline and saying, come on. 6:30. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads. Engineer Ochogo Fred, 102.5 in Kisumu, tuned in.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice
Okay, so we have
FM.
some outbound traffic today, heading towards Maimahiu. It's a mess, and traffic is already bumper to bumper on the outskirts of Nairobi. It is the weekend, so everybody's heading out. Also on Thika Road, we have some traffic outbound, but it's not too bad as we speak. Let's see what it looks like in a short while, but it seems that everybody was up and at 'em quite early this morning on Mombasa Road. Yes, there is traffic already, and it's already started to build up, and this is as far back as the Way Bridge, now heading towards the SGR, and it'll take you then through to Cabanas with this bumper-to-bumper situation. So if you didn't leave before, there's likelihood that if you're leaving now, you're going to get into traffic on Mombasa Road, and it's going to be that way for a while, guys. Okay, so we don't have any accidents on Mombasa Road so far, and I hope it remains that way for most of the morning, but there will be some traffic and heightened levels of that just so. Coming off of Langata Road, it looks good as it does off Ngong Road. As you're getting into the CBD, won't have too much of an issue right now. Starting to build up around Ngara though, as you come off Thika Superhighway. There is some traffic on Kiambu Road as well, and that is all building up right now as we get into traffic hour officially. The eastern and southern bypasses are looking pretty good though. If you're stuck somewhere, let us know. You can text us on 40127. You can tweet us on Spice FM KE.
Spice Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
25.4. This
Spice
is
F-
Kenya's biggest conversation. Saying hello to Kijana Paolo, who says, good morning, watching live from Kisumu. And also, Geoffrey Muchama is in Kisumu, Kibos. Good morning to you all. www.spicefm.co.ke and SpiceFMKE on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. A suspected serial killer has been arrested after a year. And this is on page 2 of The Standard. Police in Kisumu have arrested a suspect linked to murdering 3 people and burying them in a latrine. Nyando OCPD Leonard Matete said the suspect was arrested in Asembo Bay, where he had been reportedly hiding for more than a year since the incident. The bodies were found with multiple injuries. So, according to the story, in September last year, police had launched the manhunt for this suspect after the bodies were retrieved from the shallow pit latrine in his compound in Awasi area. And yesterday, the suspect was spotted at a funeral in Asembo Bay by members of the public who alerted the area assistant chief, who in turn notified Aram police post, and then the officers came and nabbed the man. So somebody who killed 3 people is suspected to have killed those 3 people because they were found in a pit latrine in his compound. The family of one of the victims found in the latrine told the Standard that their kin, Stephen Onyango, who was 35 years old, was last seen with the suspect. Onyango's family was attracted by a foul smell from the compound of the suspect, and a search unearthed the decomposing bodies. Enraged villagers set ablaze 2 houses belonging to the suspect, who went missing.
If your houses were set ablaze, would you hang around? You might be set ablaze.
Of course. Took off. He was arrested yesterday.
Stuff continues to happen, man.
Imagine.
It's death seems to be such an easy option for a number of people to take that life away. Okay, so senators have censured Magoha over the back-to-school order. The Senate has censured Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha's stewardship of the ministry as they questioned the arbitrary manner in which he ordered the assumption of learning, or rather the resumption of, good Lord, today, the resumption of learning.
Put on the hat.
I wish I should put on my hat. Yeah. The lawmakers in particular assailed the CS, saying the order to reopen schools was an ambush, and criticized the ministry for failure to appraise the public on the state of preparedness. Senators Gertrude Musuruve, Moses Wetangula and Amos Wako urged the ministry to assuage the curiosity of the public that learning places are safe and that the government has developed adequate safety measures and protocols to facilitate safe learning as schools resume on Monday. The Ministry of Education has not given a hint on the level of preparedness for safe learning. Mr. Wetangula said during the debate in the House, the CS's order to reopen came hardly a week after President Uhuru Kenyatta, in an address to the nation, declared that the learning places would remain closed until the safety of learners was ascertained. Yesterday, Nandi Senator Samson Chiragay said Professor Magoha has perfected the art of issuing inconsistent information on education matters and sought a statement from the ministry to explain the order on reopening schools. And I quote, "It is impossible for parents to settle and prepare children for the reopening within 3 days." Chiragay protested, adding that a 90-day notice would have been sufficient due to the long holiday. Many parents have been laid off due to the effects of COVID-19. Some have relocated to villages and yet are being asked to pay school fees within a span of 3 days. So they've asked him to explain exactly what is going on and saying that this doesn't make sense as far as they are concerned. Okay. And a spot check also shows from certain schools in the area that they are not ready at all.
So Senate says this. So what happens next?
It will be interesting to see what happens next.
Censure, yes. It's recorded in the Hansard, yes. And then now what? What happens?
Je ne sais pas.
Does it stop the reopening of schools?
We don't know.
No, they're lending their voice. Remember, they are lending their voice to what they feel may be an unnecessary burden being placed on the parents. But in Professor Magoha's defense, the truth of the matter is this. If you really look at COVID and what it is, it's one really confusing disease. Perhaps the mistake is in actually even pontificating loudly into the media what you're thinking, what you're planning, what you're hoping. A little silence or a statement of we're working on it, and on this particular day we may be able to tell you what we hope to do. When you make statements that lend themselves to being definitive, then the sort of backlash that you get from the Senate is to be expected.
Sure.
And also remember, these people whom we refer to as parents and even students, they are voters.
The problem is that he has been consistent. He's been consistent in confusing people.
That one, without a shadow of a doubt, has been the case.
Okay. As we're talking about schools, page 8 of the Standard has a picture here of Salabani Secondary School in Baringo South. There is a man, an adult man, because you can clearly see that this is an adult man, who is deep up to his chest
Good Lord have mercy.
in water. And this is in a primary school. There's now a secondary school, Salabani Secondary School, flooded. Then there's another gentleman who is trying to, I don't know, he's just trying to just hold on to water hyacinth, because Oseth Primary School in Nyando is invaded by water hyacinth. And that photo just shows you hyacinth, left, right, center, classroom out. A number of schools may fail to reopen on Monday after they were destroyed by floods. At least 26 in Baringo County were either damaged or completely submerged by floods and swelling lakes Baringo and Bogoria. In parts of Nyando, Nyakach, Rachonyo, North and Nyatike sub-counties, some schools have remained submerged by the rising waters of Lake Victoria. And this is happening in other parts of the country as well. So the question is, what happens to the pupils who should be resuming learning in these schools?
This is a question that we raised when these problems started emerging, when we had landslides,
Yep.
and then we had rain that didn't seem to abate, and the river, no, forget River Nyando, when Lake Victoria started swelling, and then Lake Nakuru, and then Lake Naivasha, and then now Baringo. These questions were raised before all these things had one thing in common: producing an unsustainable condition and ensuring that even before you talk of classrooms, people were already displaced. One didn't know what to do, and there was no clear path forward. These questions have been raised since last year.
Yeah. We remember when there was a serious flooding, and then there was landslides that took place, for example, in West Pokot, and people had to be moved. One of the places whereby they went was schools. One of the areas that they used was schools to keep people safe as a temporary living area. And the status of that, we don't know how that has changed so far.
Yeah. When we
It's
spoke with
unfortunate.
the education PS, Dr. Belio Kipsang, he told us he had just come from West Pokot and he was planning to go to Baringo, and he's sending teams to go and scout and look at these schools and then make a determination of what happens next. This story is quoting teachers, head teachers, and administrators, even county government officials, saying we don't know what to do. So clearly, even after all that work was done by Dr. Kipsang and his team, they did not communicate on what then happens. What happens to the learners at Salabani Secondary School in Baringo? What happens to the other schools, including Gambo, Lake Baringo, Kiserian Secondary, Nasokro Primary School, Sokotei Primary and Secondary, Lake Baringo Primary School? What happens to the learners who are supposed to be going back to those schools?
I mean, that's a big question. And then you hear that the Baringo governor, Stanley Kiptis, is urging the national government to address the issue of submerged schools. I mean, because it's an issue. We're not talking about just one school.
Yep.
So it's rampant enough for it to be an issue, right? Saying
And
that the
clearly,
county...
if the governor has not been told anything, that means that there is no information clearly.
Sure,
that
and
has
he's
gone
saying that
into
the
education people.
county government does not have the capacity to work on this.
Okay.
The county administration does not have the capacity
To do what exactly?
to address the issue.
Which issue?
This issue of submerged schools.
Put
according to
down
the
and
governor.
Drain the water.
No.
The national government should
You
help.
cannot blame your lack of concrete planning and preparedness. Look, if you live around the lake, you know what happens. It's not as though it's this year and last year alone that we had these problems. It's not as though we are flooding once every 10 years. We are flooding every year.
Baringo is new.
No, this occurrence in
Lake
Baringo,
swelling.
this occurrence even in Lake Victoria, this occurrence in Lake Nakuru, it is a phenomenon that occurs after decades. It's understood. But I am talking about flooding. It's a yearly event. You know it. It happens. This simply piled on top what was happening. And by the way, the lake didn't sort of like swell. When you woke up one morning and it was, you saw it. It was moving. So this lack of preparedness, tell me, what exactly is this individual talking about?
The governor of Baringo is saying the county government does not have capacity to address this issue.
You know something? The question then I should ask is, what?
You see, the thing is, what
have they done?
The way to address the issue would be create an extra school somewhere, even if it's a temporary school, where then these learners can go. Because you cannot talk about moving schools, and you know how it is, for example, in Baringo. If you're talking about this particular secondary school, the next nearby school is several tens of kilometers away. So you can't tell the learners in this area, now, you know what, guys, start going to that school in Wote, and you're here.
Eric.
They will not be able to go.
Eric, I understand what you're saying. Can we be told about what they have done? All right. Before schools, it was announced that schools were opening. People had been displaced. We saw KWS coming into Baringo, coming into the areas where you have animals, and planning, and not just planning, but moving animals. Okay?
Yep.
Plan.
Yep.
All right. It's not just students. There are habitations around those schools. And the people who live around those schools are the ones who probably send their children to those schools.
Yep.
So you're not talking about schools. You're talking about relocating communities. Okay? When you talk about help, you need to talk about the plan you have, and then you talk about the insufficient means that you have and the assistance you need. So I'm asking, what have you planned? That's my question. Because you need to relocate these people, not just the school.
You know, education is not a devolved function.
I am aware it isn't a devolved function, but you are in a county, your people have a problem. Surely you're going to sit there and wait for the government, the so-called national government to come in. Is this something you can do?
Well, if I may say, just from these reports that we are seeing that are coming out from around the country, right, it would appear that, I don't even know how to say it, the departments are not working in tandem. Because if you're just looking at this example from the County Department of Education, this is a department that should feed into the ministry. As far as they're concerned, they've done a report and they've given it to the ministry and they've said, look, we're not going to be able to open because of this problem that we see. But then you hear it coming from the side of the ministry that everybody is okay and ready to go. So you wonder, the information that you're getting, how does it now inform for you to make a decision and for you to say some of these things that you say? It just seems like a mess, headache-inducing things, man.
Yeah, but City, you're right. In terms of, so these are residents of your county.
Yes, they are.
And it's not just about opening schools, it's about where they live.
Well, I mean,
their homes have been submerged.
Exactly.
So what are you
1,000
doing?
families have been displaced. So this has nothing to do with the county government and how it does, the national government and how they're going to come in and help with the situation of schools. Because it's not just schools that have been submerged. You have families that have been displaced, right? So what was the county administration doing to assist these families at this point?
11 minutes to 7. Daniel Osiemo says, on behalf of the Situation Room listeners, I wish to ask the Spice FM management to learn that Nduoko is homesick and release her to visit home. Being Kenyan by choice doesn't make one immune to homesickness. Are you now using Kina Daniel to campaign?
I have said nothing to anybody. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, Daniel is simply exercising his rights as a Kenyan.
But what informed Daniel?
I wonder.
Let's put it this way. Take the view that Daniel is informed.
Ameonwa Nandu.
Spice FM, Malindi.
Spice and everything nice. Alright, okay. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
What business headline?
94.4 Spice F.
Hey.
The thing that I'm actually looking at takes us away from our everyday life and takes us to the committee that decides on these Nobel Prizes. There was a Nobel Prize for chemistry, we know who won it. There was one for physics. And what is of interest with these Nobel Prizes is that women have come to the fore. You had the Nobel Prize for chemistry, physics, chemistry, women, and now poetry. What brought this to my attention?
Poetry is in the literature.
Literature, that's literature. There's an American poet by the name of...
Ogewathiongo is not a woman.
No.
Kai. So it's gone.
No, it's gone. Louise Gluck, okay? She's a poet. But it's not her who I was actually thinking of. This came to my attention when I was reading, and I was reading something about T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot was a poet, a renowned poet, born in America, renounced his citizenship, became a British citizen. But there's a quote that is attributed to T.S. Eliot that caught my attention. It says, only those who risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go. It caught my attention. And when I look at the reasons that are given for awarding this lady, in summary, the Nobel Prize for Literature, is that she was able, if I may quote, she is one of the rare contemporary poets whose work has the gift of speaking directly to readers. It's not proverbial, directly. And they say that she has this gift for explaining family life, livelihoods, childhoods, well in her poetry. I haven't read any of her poems, but now I am encouraged to go and read. Yes, I just thought, because when do you hear of a poet winning a prize? T.S. Eliot also won a Nobel Prize, and this was in 1948. So I thought I should just mention this.
It's a good thing.
Yes.
Not the one on the other side.
But our Ngugi wa Thiong'o,
means
who we
that our
thought might
Ngugi wa
have
Thiong'o
been a
again.
front runner for this, once again, you know, this freedom that that particular committee that determines this thing is given, it has come under scrutiny and discussion of late. But what has perhaps come under the most scrutiny and debate is the Peace Prize. Because it has been argued that that is one of those prizes that has a strong political leaning and inclination.
Yeah.
And it even defies the logic of peace. And you wonder, but you're saying it's a peace prize. Why is this person being given this prize? What have they done in the field of peace to warrant this? But again, it's the committee's decision, it's the determination. But on the same note, something of equal interest, Prince, what is Harry's older brother called?
William.
Yes, he together with one Sir David Attenborough, they have launched a prize, a huge prize, net worth 7 billion Kenya shillings, right? Together with the Aga Khan Development Network and one of the Global Alliance founding partners. Annually, they will contribute 1 million US pounds annually, right, towards this. Now, you want me to say what the price is for?
US pounds, UK pounds.
Did I say US pounds?
You did.
I meant UK pound. There's nothing like a US pound. All right?
No?
It is a global environmental prize in history. Yes.
All right.
So-
With Sir David Attenborough.
Yeah, so the Nobel Prize has competition.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let's come back to the country.
Shall we?
KEMSA tenders had too many flaws. This is according to the regulator. So this story is talking about a report presented by the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority, PPRA, which told a parliamentary committee that the tenders regarding COVID-19 related medical supplies could not be saved in the eyes of law and procedure despite their emergency nature. The agency handed over its final report to the Senate Health Committee, with Director General Maurice Juma flagging out favoritism in the process. It also notes that the procurement process was shrouded in mystery, as KEMSA is yet to provide details of some 23 companies that benefited from the tenders. And the authority was saying that there is a need for investigations into the remaining 23 COVID-19 related tenders. Now, This is an KEMSA, which is not providing information to an authority that is in charge of public procurement. And the authority is saying, this is what we got. And I think it's important to investigate further. What are we saying? That this authority does not have powers to demand and cause to be given these details, the information that it seeks? That it's possible for a government agency to decide what it gives a regulator and what it doesn't give a regulator?
Aye. Now, do you see the lengths to which impunity can actually spread? But remember when we were discussing the issue of KEMSA, and we also discussed the issue of the MES, similar statements were actually reported to have come out when the then CS, one Dr. Mailu, sought to get information from his principal secretary, one Dr. Muraguri, similar, and the response was state secret.
Yep.
Which you, the CS, the minister,
Will never get to see.
Exactly. Unfortunately, it's all come out, has it not?
Yeah, so the report is placing suspended KEMSA CEO Jonah Manjari at the center of this scandal. It's blaming Dr. Manjari for issuing commitment letters instead of tender documents in response to the letters of intent from the bidders, saying the publications and reporting of the contracts were not done by KEMSA. The CEO did not ensure compliance to the law, stating that any accounting officer of a public entity shall be primarily responsible for ensuring that the public entity complies with the law. Still, the CEO and those other suspended officers, they're still in that whole quagmire. They're in the mud.
But
Nobody mentions.
Eric, let me ask you.
They report to a board.
They do report to a board. They're answerable. They are
Nobody
answerable.
mentions the board.
But let's start with this. They actually are a government agency. Quasi, but they're a government agency with a board and with a very strong representation of the government in it.
Yes.
So how then do they acquire this autonomy where they can decide on their own? When even the decision-making process, when it comes to some of these things, has to go to the board.
Yep.
Even the appointment of the people who work there goes to the board.
Goes to the board.
Yes.
And even just when in these hearings, we saw the board chairman, Kembe Gitora, going to present in the Senate.
Yes.
And even in the National Assembly. And saying some of these things we are aware of, some of these things that we are not aware of. When Dr. Jonah Manjari was saying some of these orders were coming straight from the ministry, when the Health Committee of the National Assembly was recommending that the PS also be investigated, it is because there's some orders coming from above. This one of KEMSA, and then none of them is actually even talking about the private sector companies involved.
You know what is of interest in that KEMSA issue, Eric, is that money that was actually meant for universal health purposes were also
Was
used.
diverted again into
Yes,
this
now
COVID.
that hasn't even been talked about, but we'll leave it there for the
Can you
time being.
imagine? Can you imagine? So we have all these back and forth issues of KEMSA coming up. We don't mention the companies that were involved. We just say, some companies were even supplying even before they received any tender.
Companies have owners.
And these companies have owners. These companies are not mentioned. The owners are not mentioned. The board is not mentioned. The CEO, yes, the CEO, of course, takes responsibility.
And the director in charge of procurement.
And the director
we know
in charge
who
of
they are by name.
procurement.
But even board members would like to know their names.
Yes. Kila mtu aingie kwa hii mkutano.
Useful, isn't it?
Yes. It's important to. Why do you sit in a board if you are not going to take responsibility when things go wrong in a board? You're just going to accuse your board secretary of.
Actually, and you're just going to accuse the CEO. Yes, the accused may be culpable, but you are supposed to be there to provide oversight.
Yes, that's
So-
why you're there.
The question will be asked, what oversight did you actually provide in these circumstances?
Yeah, and that will be the question, or should be the question
Yeah.
that is asked.
Let's come to the top of the hour. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, broadcasting on www.spicefm.co.ke and SpiceFM.ke on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Good morning. 7 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything I Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru. Traffic.
Okay, so let's look at what it looks like on the roads. We still have that outbound traffic going towards my Mahu this morning. What's going on is the question, because the traffic is epic. Before we saw just a few vehicles, but now we have kilometers of vehicles, rather kilometers of traffic today headed out of town. We know that people are going away for the weekend or maybe rushing to school. Don't know what the problem is, but if they have to get there early.
On Saturday.
I don't know now.
Okay.
There's traffic outbound, or they're shopping, or going to look for money. I don't know.
Unusual. I thought we have this sort of traffic on almost every Friday.
We do have this, but now we're already at kilometers of traffic on that particular road, even before, just around 7 o'clock.
Uncle, you're right, it's 7 o'clock, isn't it?
Yeah. So let's see what it looks like in a short while. Traffic on Thika Road also at KCA on the highway. The service lanes, however, are open and can be used. It's already chock-a-block on Mombasa Road, and that is all the way from the Weighbridge, heading then towards the SGR and then on towards the JKIA turn-off. So it looks like it's going to be a jam-packed morning already. If you're stuck somewhere, let us know, and at least you can let other people know or find you an alternate route, right? Right. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter, or text us on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
Good morning.
The
Welcome
only way
to
to
the
start
second
your
hour
day.
of The Situation Room right here on Spice FM. Now we're live for the next 2 hours as well on KTN Home, and we have been live since 6 a.m. on our digital platforms, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and www.spicefm.co.ke. CT Muga, remind us today's proverb.
Wood touched by fire is not hard to set alight.
Wood touched by fire is not hard to set alight.
Yep. Maybe you want to ask yourself, what sort of wood is difficult to set alight?
Wood touched by water.
Exactly. Very true. Not just difficult, almost impossible. Fire dehydrates the wood, and you have flame-ready wood.
Okay.
True. Try, ready to go.
Okay. So, let's have today's conversation, and for this hour, we want to go back to Tanzania. We've said for the next couple of weeks until Tanzania holds its general election, we'll be trying as much as possible to have a Tanzania conversation to understand what's happening in the run-up to the general election. What's the date of the election again?
28th October.
All right. Just a couple of
wait,
days.
this month.
Yes.
When is the U.S. election?
November 3rd.
November.
I was about to say this month, this year.
This year. It's the month after this one. Yeah.
Okay.
So Tanzanian election is in 19 days, 2 weeks too. And there's a lot of drama already happening in terms of the campaigns and what's going on with that. John Pombe Magufuli is traversing the country on the campaign trail and is quite energized about this, getting Tanzanians to change their minds or make up their minds or stick with him, as it were. And it would be assumed, or it is assumed, then that the powers that be are stopping other candidates from doing just the same. One such fellow falls in this category, which is Tundu Lissu.
Isn't something to muse over? Because even in this country, we have a similar situation where people feel that they're being curtailed in their efforts to spread their message of good cheer and development and empowerment. And yet, it's because of our political system. Now, in the American political system, what I found interesting was that already the voting has begun. 4 million people have already voted. 4 million. But what is particularly interesting is they are seeing an upsurge of voters. They are seeing the interest that people have taken in voting more than any time. They're almost arguing it's almost any time in their history. So one could argue that you can almost tell exactly where this thing is already headed towards. Now, early days yet, but there it is. Now, we in Kenya, and if I may, jump to the border and get into Tanzania, our people are conducting themselves in almost a similar manner to those in the US. If you look at the conversations that are being had by the parties that seem to be adversarial, the conversations are not really that different. But what is significant and what is new to me in the American election system is we have a conversation that has preempted even the voting, not accepting the results.
Yep.
Already been declared in many quarters.
Already been declared.
Said that, if it goes a certain way, they're likely not to accept.
If you use this system,
If you use the mail
Yes,
system,
yes.
which Trump has complained about
and
quite
said
often,
it's prone to, and yet those who use that system, who oversee it, said,
who've used it for years and have no problem with it.
yes, it's not as though it's coming into this election. It's always been there. But with COVID, they've just expanded it. But the moment you have a situation where a political leader is curtailed from movement, a lot will be read into that.
Of course, and a lot is being read into it. I mean, we saw on Tuesday that a convoy carrying the Chadema party leader was blocked for several hours. And we're talking about noon till about 9 p.m. is when he made the announcement that he was then allowed to move then into Morogoro. They were halting. It was a temporary halt on his campaigns due to what they call, or these were now alleged violations, according to the Electoral Commission in Tanzania. So they halted his entourage about 24 kilometers west of the capital. They were detained, though not himself, but they were saying that they wanted to stop him from going to this region severally. He had been suspended last Friday for campaigning for 7 days after it reportedly received complaints from the ruling party, interestingly enough, and another party that he had used seditious language during campaigning. He was also accused of making unplanned addresses to masses of people. So here we see another situation where in Tanzania you must make announcements that you're going to campaign in a certain area. You must let people know in advance that you're going to do this. If you don't, we see what happened to Lisu now in this case. You did not tell us that you were going to campaign in this area, so we halted. And you violate this several times, we will now suspend you from campaigning for a period of time.
7 days.
Sound like something you want to happen in Kenya as well, CT?
But what is of interest, what I find particularly interesting is this. The authorities there, don't they understand that in stopping a presidential candidate during this period of time, you're popularizing the person even more?
Well, there you
But
go.
what do you do? I mean, if you're at the electoral management body and there are regulations that say this is how we shall conduct elections, and if you don't follow them, then this is what happens. The electoral management body cannot say, you know what, we understand the law, but now if we stop him, he becomes more popular. That's not the mandate of the...
But do they even quote the statutes that they keep referring to? Because one of the things that happens in this country, any authority, the one thing they'll do, they'll quote that constitution for you until your ears are blue. Okay?
Yes.
When you simply mention and you don't support it with the authoritative...
But is that what happened with the Tanzanian
I have
electoral
not
management?
read anywhere where
We have not seen the statement.
Yes.
And we haven't seen the Chadema leader saying that I have not violated the law. Or
What
you
he
have
did
not
say-
What did he say?
What he said was that he would observe the suspension. One.
There you go.
And that however, they called it unfair, illegal, and unacceptable. Lisu himself claimed on Tuesday that he was headed to a small town of Kibaha to check on his party's activities and to conduct internal meetings. He stressed that he was not actively campaigning or planning rallies, but the police did not choose to listen to this. He said he was not doing any of this. However, he was going to go with the censure.
In an
and he was going
election
to go along
period,
with that.
you are a contending participant and you go to visit. even if you go to visit your relatives, it'll be seen as a political
You're
rally.
going to, monitor the party activities in this area. As
Political
they,
rally.
I
as
mean,
they
if you want to look at
campaign.
Uganda just across, even when people take a walk, it's seemed as a political
It is.
activity. So even that was not allowed. However, according to from Lisu's point of view, he informed them that this is what he was going to do. So it's okay. We'll take the suspension. We'll sit out for 7 days, as you say.
I will not campaign.
However, I will not campaign.
I'll just
However,
hold
I think
party meetings.
it is unfair. It is illegal. And it's just, again, unacceptable from his point of view. But what it did do, if you look at what came out as a result of Tuesday's activities, the entire nation was abuzz because of this standoff for those 9 hours. And like you said, it was Lisu who came out smelling like a rose at the end of the day. It happened.
You bring more attention to the individual
Sure.
than they could have brought on themselves if they wanted to. Because now you actually made him a point of focus nationally.
Does it sway the vote?
That one isn't certain about, but it certainly begs the question, why is this happening to this person? Why? See, that why is the question which you perhaps would want the voter to avoid asking. Because if you've already charted your path and you're trying to convince them to think in a certain way and to view in a certain light if you're the incumbent, you don't really want that attention being diverted to somebody else.
Especially when you, as the incumbent, is
I am-
crisscrossing the country
I'm in
at the same time
disagreement
when
with
this
you guys.
individual is being stopped.
Please.
My disagreement is, if as a political party you feel that your opponent is breaking the law, complain by all means, because this is what is provided for in the law. Complain to the relevant authority, in this case, the electoral management body. If the electoral management body, you receive a complaint from any party, an opposing political party or any individual voter saying, we feel that so-and-so is breaking the law, investigate. If you find that this person is indeed breaking the law, censure them in accordance with the law. It doesn't matter whether it makes them popular, less popular. It doesn't matter whether it sheds a spotlight on whether this person now becomes popular or whether he's being picked on. Those are secondary. As the electoral management body, if you don't do these things, then you are not performing your duties as the Electoral Commission.
Sure, when you look at it on a technical point of view, that's very good. However, there's a part of politics which is based highly on perception.
Yeah.
Right? And the
Almost all of it.
There you go. And so the perception now is that state machinery is being used to silence the voice of the opposition,
True.
is being used to silence any kind of campaign strategy or any kind of campaign mileage, any kind of political mileage that Lisu and his team would make by using state
True.
machinery to shut him down. So
True.
when you do this, whether or not the commission is doing their job and coloring within the lines, on the other hand,
Let's
the
assume.
perception then is that, okay,
Let's
they're
assume
doing what
Ndu,
they're
that
doing.
indeed,
They're doing what they're doing.
Let's assume
However,
that indeed
there's a
this
reason.
candidate is breaking the law. Should you not take action because it's going to be assumed that state machinery is going after him?
No, I agree.
Let's
I agree
assume that you actually
I
have
agree.
a genuine
Go-
concern that what this person is doing is wrong. Let's assume that you actually do have that genuine concern.
If you want to go
Give
with
the
that,
benefit of the doubt to CCM, to the other party that complained. Give benefit of doubt. Give benefit of doubt to the Electoral Commission. Should you not take action because you're worried about perception? I think at some point, perception, yes, but follow the law. Because it doesn't matter. This candidate could just basically be doing that, knowing full well that I'm pushing you so that you take this action, so that when you take that action, then it creates this perception, and I end up smelling like roses. They do that deliberately.
Actually, Eric, you do have a very valid point. You see, this is the unfortunate anomaly with incumbency. The moment you're an incumbent, they automatically will be people who are aligned to those who opposed you when you last had the election.
Yeah.
And because you're in government, there are those who had hopes which have not been realized, not understanding that it is not possible for them to be realized in the way that people want it, irrespective of who is in that position. You're already disadvantaged. So any action you take, even if you're within the boundaries of the law, people will view it in the light that suits them. Those who support those who are opposing you, who want that same seat, will not see it in, let's put it, they'll see it only one light.
Yes.
Their candidate is being blocked and it's unlawful. They will not even bother to find out whether the law actually agrees with their view.
Damned if you are, damned if you are
Yes,
not.
yes. If you're an incumbent, that is a problem that you must have. And that is why incumbency requires a lot more circumspection. Simply because you are the incumbent. Whenever the person who is vying for that same seat does anything, even if it's completely going against the law, those who support them will never see it that way. They won't.
Yeah.
That's why.
But you have a responsibility to ensure that the law is followed.
You do.
That's the other thing that you have.
You
As an
do.
incumbent, it is you who is in office.
This i-
If things went south, that same guy in the opposition will be pointing fingers and saying, look, they were just sitting back. They were
Eric,
busy campaigning.
Let's take an example of our country, all right? A rally, a meeting, Harambe was stopped yesterday in Nyamira,
Yes.
all right? Immediately, if you look at what happened on the weekend in Muranga, though there are those who will argue the government really had a point because they don't want to repeat of the same thing. But again, there are those who will feel here is someone who is clearly vying for the presidency and is making inroads, and they are being hampered by the state.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a debate that will not stop. When there's political competition, it will not stop. There is no day it will stop. No.
It's true, it will not stop. But this is where now my argument is, it doesn't matter what kind of perception it creates. If you are acting within the law, please act. Because you're the one who has a responsibility to ensure enforcement of the law. And this is not even CCM, this is the electoral management body. The electoral management body in Tanzania has received complaints, has investigated complaints, has acted in accordance with the law. Now, of course, Tundu Lissu says that he feels that it's unfair, it's illegal, it does not go with the law. But he also says that I will abide by this. Okay? Now, this is one thing. We can argue back and forth whether, it is justified, it's illegal or illegal. But the point is, the Electoral Commission has taken action in accordance with what it believes is
Eric,
the law.
in Kenya, did you not hear of a time when our electoral commission was being blamed for everything left, right, and center? And there were statements to the effect that, in fact, they were siding with the then government. Yet, if you looked closely at the formation of that particular commission, even those in the opposition had a say as to who is part of that commission.
They had great influence.
Yes, it's not as though the government just picked up whoever they wanted. That was really not the case. It was supposed to be representative, isn't it?
Yep.
But the voices that were then coming out, it's like the government employed these people. And I'm certain those same voices will come out in Tanzania. Is this current government give these people their job? So who do you think they're going to listen to? Now, that's what I'm saying. This debate, it's a debate that will not stop. So it's up now to the citizenry of the respective countries to look at this situation and ask themselves, really, what are we dealing with here? But even that is asking too much. Because when someone decides they're going to support an individual, any other logic that goes beyond supporting that person goes out of the window.
Supporters of Tundu Lissu will remain supporters of Tundu Lissu.
They will.
Regardless.
Those who are supporters of CCM and the other, how many candidates do we have? 20 or so candidates for the presidential election in Tanzania. All those who support all the others will remain. Now, there are those who you may say may be swayed by what is happening. They may look at this and feel, what Tundu Lissu said. I could have voted for him, but no, now I'm not going to vote for him. I'll vote for somebody else.
But consider, Eric, there's a third group, a very strong group. They may not like Tundu Lissu, but they don't like the current government.
Another case of we'll use whomever we can to get in.
Yes.
And the sole purpose of that is to get the current out.
Yes.
Yep.
Not necessarily
Vote
that
out
we're
the
voting
current.
in
Yes.
someone, but we're
Yes.
voting out somebody, essentially.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
There are those who think that way. So when you are the incumbent, hey, man, you've got your job cut out.
Things for or against you.
Yes.
So we'll be speaking with Tundu Lissu, the presidential candidate in Tanzania shortly. We're waiting for him to join us on the video link. We'll be speaking with him. But as we do that, let's also look at a statement that was issued by the U.S. State Department yesterday. They are preparing for their own elections in the USA, but the State Department issued a statement on the upcoming elections in Africa without mentioning any particular country. And it says the U.S. is committed to supporting free, fair, inclusive elections. The conduct of elections is important not only for Africans, but also for defenders of democracy. Around the world, we believe all sides should participate peacefully in the democratic process. Repression and intimidation have no place in democracies. The right to peaceful assembly and freedom of expression and association are at the heart of a functioning democracy. Adherence to these democratic norms and to the rule of law allows all citizens to engage in political dialogue and support their choice of candidates, parties, or platforms. We will watch closely the actions of individuals who interfere in the democratic process and will not hesitate to consider the consequences, including visa restrictions, for those responsible for election-related violence. So, who do you think Mr. Pompeo is addressing here?
Well, it could be anybody. How many elections are taking place on the continent this year?
That falls squarely into what's happening in Tanzania. You know, it's right to peaceful assembly, blah, 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 blah. That falls squarely into what is running up to 2022 in the country, right to peaceful assembly, blah, blah, blah.
Elections are taking place in Ghana this year.
Yeah. But why blanket it? If you've got an issue, just come out and say, so for instance, we've noticed this and that happening in Tanzania, and we take exception, or we'd advise, or we'd caution, or as friendly partners, this is what we'd say. Why blanket it?
Why not just sort out their own issues at home?
Or why not just focus on what is currently happening in your own house,
Yes.
and then you'll come and talk to us?
And then after sorting it out, lead by example, tell us, you see how we've sorted ours now. What we want to tell you as people who've sorted out our problems.
So that you can go in this way.
They're in a mud fight.
So you're saying they have no moral authority to issue a statement on elections in Africa?
No. Morality doesn't come into it. If you want to speak as a friend and as an equal partner, there's a way in which you present these matters. But the big brother approach as to, I know better, and my issues are handled better, and I live by example. We look at the example, and they're not even mirroring us. They're overtaking us in some of these things. And these things refers to bad governance. So when someone like this speaks, I think he's speaking in the past tense. The past tense here is when America was considered to be the voice of reason, for those who wanted to see it that way, the voice of democracy, the voice of freedom. They still speak about it that way, and yet you look around America, and these very values are the ones you find being abrogated on a daily basis. So you want to bring in morality and say, what moral authority does he have? Just start by what authority. Don't even throw morality into it.
What authority does he have?
Yes.
He says, as long-time partners to the nations of Africa, we care about the region's democratic trajectory and are committed to working constructively with international and regional partners.
Of course you do. Sort out your own issues.
I read this statement. I didn't quite get. I could see, there's something that you're saying. This is like a, copy and paste of previous statements that have been given by previous secretaries of state in the lead up to elections in other parts of the world.
Yes.
But
Yes.
this particular one, what are you saying?
From the
Mr.
earliest
Mike
times,
Pompeo.
essentially, we are being told, look, there's a way in which we expect you to behave, okay?
Yep.
And that behavior, we're not going to say it, but if you expect us to give you a helping hand, this is what we expect you to do.
We will deny you visas.
Yes, exactly. This is what we're going to do. These visas that you like, you're not coming to our country, okay? We know we can't build a wall in Africa to prevent you from coming, but you won't come. So, we're not being told anything new. But what I'm saying is we understand what you're saying, and it's how you like to conduct your politics. But please, you have bigger problems, and these problems are at home. Sort them out.
Focus on your own issues.
The Africans will sort out their own issues.
Yep. So, the conversation that we'll be having with Tundu Lissu, we'll have that conversation immediately after this break. When you're going into a break now, in the Situation Room, this is Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN Home, and online, www.spicefm.co.ke. So we'll have a phone conversation with the presidential candidates of Chadema party in Tanzania. And, he's a man that we spoke to earlier when he was not yet back in Tanzania, telling us that he was hoping to get back to the country to campaign for the election, to get votes. Now he's there. He's facing a 1-week suspension from the Electoral Commission of Tanzania because of what it has said. He broke regulations of the elections. But we want to understand exactly what's happening in the country. Good morning. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 87.9 Spice FM. Mombasa. The weather with
Cloudy
Spice
Nairobi
FM.
at 16, going to highs of 28 and lows of 14 today. Partly cloudy conditions in Nyeri at 16, highs of 26 and lows of 13 with rain expected later. And partly cloudy conditions in Nakuru at 14 degrees, going to highs of 24 and lows of 13. Eldoret is partly cloudy at 13. Rains expected, thunderstorms actually, highs of 22 and lows of 12. It's partly cloudy in Kisumu at 19 degrees, highs of 27 and lows of 19 with showers expected later. 25 degrees will be the high today in Kakamega, lows of 16 with partly cloudy conditions at 17. Mostly cloudy conditions in Mombasa, 25 degrees going to highs of 29 and lows of 25. And in Malindi, it's mostly cloudy at 25, highs of 29 and lows of 24 with showers expected later. Kampala will be mostly cloudy at 19, highs of 25 and lows of 18. Rains expected in the afternoon as well. It'll be partly cloudy in Dar es Salaam at 24, highs of 32 and lows of 23. Joburg is mostly sunny at 12, highs of 22 and lows of 12 with mostly sunny conditions going on through the day. Continues to rain down in Lagos, 29 degrees at the moment. We'll go to highs of 31 and lows of 23.
Chilled Spice. Traffic.
Okay, so we're still seeing that long traffic. Kilometers on the Maimahi Road this morning, outbound Nairobi. We're not quite sure what's causing that problem, but we're waiting for reports on that. But if you're headed in that direction, please note that that is what is up ahead out of the city of Nairobi today. Survey towards Muthaiga, moving very slowly on the highway, and this is the thickest superhighway into the CBD. The service lane from Utali, no movement whatsoever as you're trying to get in there. We will keep an eye on that, but for now it looks like you can get through very slowly, but you'll get through all the same. Mombasa Road, all the way from the Weybridge today is where we see the traffic. It's moving very slowly today, guys. And we see that bumper to bumper situation. We get through that with some patience is what it means. Okay, getting in from Waiaki Way into the CBD as well. Moving very slowly from Westlands, but you get to the University Way roundabout, you should be all right. Okay, we'll also see that there is some traffic right around the Uhuru Highway. This is from the Nyayo Stadium roundabout all the way through to Westlands, so keep an eye on that for you. Spice FM KE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter, and 40127 text.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
28 minutes after
94.4.
7, the conversation continues. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, broadcasting from Nairobi, 94.4, Mombasa, 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, Eldoret, 96.7, Nyeri, 90.9, Malindi, 97.7. We're also live on KTN Home until 9 o'clock, and we're live on www.spicefm.co.ke and Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. In the room this and every weekday morning is Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, and CT Muga. Joining us on the line shortly is the Tanzania opposition presidential candidate Antiphas Mugwai Tundu Lissu. We'll be speaking to him about what's happening in Tanzania. What we know so far is that he's serving a suspension for about a week from the Electoral Commission in Tanzania because of what he was accused of. What had he done again?
He's been, alleged violations of coming from the commission, and we're looking at seditious statements that he's alleged to have made, and also then planning campaign rallies without proper notice and meetings without, again, proper notice from the commission to the commission and also security forces within the country.
Okay, so that is what is happening, and let's see if we can now raise him. Good morning, Tundu Lissu.
Good morning. I'm on Zoom already.
All right. Karibu. Thank you very much for speaking to us, and welcome to the Situation Room.
Guys, let me in. It'll be very helpful. It will be very helpful.
Yeah. So here we are speaking to you months after we spoke to you before you come back to Tanzania. At that point, you were hoping that you were going to be able to contest in the presidential election. Here you are, right in the thick of it. You are actually contesting in this presidential election. But now you're serving a
Are
suspension.
you on Zoom? Are you on Zoom?
Well,
Yes.
we're seeing you on Zoom, but it's also good to hear you on the phone so that we have a clear line, because I think the Zoom connection is a bit static for a moment.
So, okay.
So we continue the conversation on the phone. So you're serving a suspension from the Electoral Commission.
That's right. The suspension ends today.
All right, so we were trying to understand what exactly is the accusation. What is the Electoral Commission saying that you violated?
Listen, I'm supposed to have made a wrong statement to the effect that the president has had a brand new airport built in his home village, which is true. The world knows that. You Kenyans know that.
Mm-hmm.
Because President Uhuru, only 2 months ago, President Uhuru was at Chato and he went by his presidential plane.
Mm-hmm.
And a wide array of other allegations. But here is the deal. As I speak to you, I have not seen a copy of the complaint because it was never served on me.
Mm-hmm.
I never received a summons to defend myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was never called to appear before the ethics committee to present a defense.
Yep.
And therefore I did not defend myself.
Mm-hmm.
And a sentence of suspension for 7 days was passed, and it has not been served on me. So what I know of the suspension and the grounds thereof is what I have read from social media, just like yourselves in Kenya or elsewhere in the world.
So with all that, then why did you agree to abide by the suspension?
I did not agree to abide by the suspension. I simply could not hold any meeting after that because the police wouldn't allow me to.
Mm-hmm.
You may have heard that I was prevented from going to an internal meeting just outside Dar es Salaam.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the police have effected this suspension with false alarms. And my colleagues and I decided that, if that is the case, we do things the other way, and that is, to do other activities that not involve meetings because it's only up 7 days after all.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a totally bogus suspension on completely spurious grounds.
And why do you think something like this would be done, Tundu? Why do you think that they would do these on these bogus grounds that you talk about? What would you think would be the reason behind all of this?
Well, President Magufuli and his electoral commission thought that there was not going to be an election but a coronation. They thought it was going to be a clear run to the State House without any contest. And what my candidacy has done is to throw those dreams into the four corners of the world.
Mm-hmm.
They have a serious challenge. They're actually losing it. And because they are losing it, they had to find a way of slowing me down. And this suspension is their attempt at slowing me down.
So you say that you feel you've gained a lot of ground with Chadema and the campaigns around the country.
I say I have overwhelming support. I have overwhelming support countrywide. if you follow what is going on in Tanzania right now on social media, you will have seen my campaign rallies attended by tens of thousands of people everywhere I have gone. Tens of thousands of people. President Magufuli and his campaign, they have to bribe people to go to their meetings. They have to close all public schools and public offices. They have to bus in people from far and wide. And all we need to do is to say we'll be at such and such a place, and tens of thousands of people will show up to listen to my message. So my campaign has been overwhelmingly successful. It has been massive. And what we are seeing now with the commission suspending me and police violence on the increase is these are clear signs that the regime is panicking.
We thank you for your time. There's something I wanted to ask. I've been paying very keen attention to the process of campaigning in Tanzania, but I've been juxtaposing to that in America. And that's where my question now comes from.
Yes.
In the event that you win an election, do you foresee the president conceding defeat?
President Magufuli?
Yes.
Well, President Magufuli is not going to concede anything, but we'll have to force him out. He loses, he clings on in power, we'll just have to throw him out.
In the same measure, would you be ready to concede defeat?
I will concede defeat if the election is free, fair, and credible. Nothing more, nothing less.
So tell us, what would a free, fair election, credible of course, election look like? What would be the tenets? What would it represent?
Number one,
yes.
We must have our polling agents sworn in,
yes.
And that is not a given. Number two, we must have our polling agents allowed into polling stations, and that is not a given in Tanzania. Number three, our polling agents must be supplied with result forms with election returns of their polling stations, and that is not given in Tanzania. And number four, the lawfully elected winners must be declared so, and that is not a given in Tanzania. Those are our basic standards for what we'll see as a free and fair election. And of course, if there is no police violence and violence from CCM vigilantes that they have recruited countrywide.
Why are these things not given?
Have our polling agents sworn in, have them placed inside polling stations, give them electoral returns of their polling stations, declare the lawfully elected person as a winner, and no violence from anyone. If there is a breach of any of those, the election is not free and fair in accordance with our criteria.
As you mentioned these things, you say that they're not givens. As you mentioned these things, you say that they're not givens. Why are they not givens? Why is it not something that the people of Tanzania can look at and say, we expect this to happen?
Yeah. These are the most basic requirements in any democratic election. But here in Tanzania, we have to fight for them. We have to fight for our polling agents to be sworn in, and if they are not sworn in, they are not polling agents. We have to fight to have them into polling stations, and if they are not in the polling stations, you get rigged out. We have to fight in order to get them to be given election returns forms, and these are not. We have to fight in order to get these basic. But we have to fight anyway. If we don't fight, we don't get them. And we have long experience of losers being declared winners because they are CCM candidates. And of course, election violence is not a Kenyan province only. it has been creeping into our elections in the recent past, and especially in this election, we are seeing a spike in police violence and violence from citizen vigilantes.
Mr. Lissu, do I understand you to say that in the years that Tanzania has had presidential elections, that you can't point to one election that could have been considered free and fair and credible?
There has never, ever been a free and fair election in this country since 1995. I have been a participant, an active participant in them all, with the exception of the 2000 general election. But I've been a participant in all other general elections, and I can tell you, and I can point out to reports of the commission itself. In 2010, the commission itself said that it needed independence in order to discharge its functions of supervising our elections. So we have never had any free and fair elections by any standard. Our electoral commission is entirely controlled by the government in power. All of them are presidential appointees. The commissioners and the chairperson and the vice chairperson are all appointees of President Magufuli. The returning officers of all constituencies are appointees of the president. And President Magufuli has said publicly that he does not expect them to declare opposition candidates as winners. So we have never had the kind of luxuries that other democratic countries have had.
So with all of this, if we're going by what you're saying at this point, Tundu, then are you saying essentially then, if we're talking about democracy, then it doesn't exist in Tanzania?
No, it exists only in paper.
So with all the push for the things that you're saying, the minimum conditions for free, fair and credible elections, with only 20 days to go, Tundu Lissu, do you feel as if you've made progress in getting these conditions met?
Well, we have said that we will not accept anything less than a free, fair, and credible election on those criteria. If those criteria are not met, we will summon the masses into the streets to protest and to protect their democratic rights.
The question that I'm asking, I'm actually asking the question directly from today, from where you sit today. Are there indications that this election is going to be free, fair, democratic, transparent?
No.
So basically what we are saying then is that you're most likely not going to accept the result of this election.
If it continues like this, we will not.
Let me ask a different question. The things that you say must would consider the basic for you to actually accept any outcome of these elections. Are there things that are entrenched in your laws? Are there things that you can go back to? They are?
These are things that are entrenched in our law since 1985. Our Elections Act was enacted in 1985. And these basic demands that are making are part of the law since then. They were part of the law 5 years ago. They were part of the law 10 years ago and 10 years. They have been part of our law for the past 35 years. But during the past 5 years, they have become a matter of struggle.
Are we then to expect, for instance, that if, as you say, these are matters that are entrenched in the law, and well, by that statement, it means that if someone doesn't abide by them, then they will be going against the law. Are there instances in Tanzania when people have actually faced the wrath of the law when they've gone against these very laws that determine the electoral outcomes in Tanzania?
Well, Tanzania is a very repressive state. We have suffered these past 5 years. People got killed protesting the same thing 2 years ago. Our entire leadership of the party was almost sent to prison earlier this year because of that protest in March of 2018. Because our candidates in a by-election, our polling agents in a by-election were not sworn in, and people had to protest. and someone was killed by the police, and our entire national leadership was convicted and sentenced, and had they not raised the money quickly, they would have they would have been in prison by now. So these are things that are going to be contested. If we don't get those 4-5 basic demands met, we definitely will not accept the results.
Should you become president, what will you do to ensure that these wrongs that you very, very spiritedly talk about are actually set right?
We will carry out much of you Kenyans went through conversant with Kenyan history. You went through a constitutional process that culminated with your 2010 constitution. We need the same. We have a constitution that is essentially a one-party constitution, which was enacted in 1977 at the heyday of the one-party autocracy, and therefore, to make sure that these things never happen again, we will have to carry out a thorough democratization of our state and our politics. We will have to deal with the legacy of imperial presidency that has been a feature of our constitutional order since 1962. Essentially, our president has become an emperor. He's basically above the law. He's accountable to no one except his God. And because the president is above the law, his appointees are above the law everywhere. And this system has to go. And it is our program, our party's program, that within the first 100 days of assuming the presidency, we will restart the constitution-making process that was scuttled in 2014 during the last year of President Kikwete's administration. So we will carry out a thoroughgoing constitutional political reform to put our country into the 21st century in terms of its democratic standards.
Even as we hear you saying these things and saying that, if you don't see that the results of the election are upheld in a democratic manner, as you've described it just now, and then going on to say that there will be mass protests in the country because of that. Every time we hear mass protests in a country as a result of presidential elections, it would give the connotation of some kind of violence would come out as a result of that, and that you would not be able to maintain the peace. Is that something that you are actually ready to risk in this case, or are you looking from a point of view that you must then bring everything down to the ground in order to get the results that you're looking for?
Mass protests are the most democratic means of changing the law and changing political power anywhere. It is not just in Tanzania; it is everywhere in the world. Mass democratic action, peaceful protests. These are democratic, the most democratic means of people showing their displeasure with the status quo. And we calling for mass action is not any different from what you Kenyans have done for years. It is not different from other peoples of the world have done to change what they consider unjust rule. And civil disobedience is the most peaceful way of changing politics. We will not engage in violence. We don't have the weapons. If there is violence, it will come from those who are armed to the teeth, and those who will stand in the way of the democratic will of the Tanzanian people. And therefore, it is what it is. It is what I say. It is going to happen. We will summon the people into the streets to protest peacefully against the stealing of the election.
If I understand you from statements that you've made, you accuse the president of contravening COVID regulations. Did I understand you correctly?
I didn't say that. You did not ask me any question about COVID-19.
Okay. Do you feel that the president has been contravening COVID regulations?
There are no COVID regulations here. Here, the president declared us COVID-19 free, brother.
So are you COVID free?
Well, who knows? There are no statistics. Nothing official is coming out on anywhere. The official position is we are COVID-19 free. So no medical personnel, no government officer has issued any report, any statistics on infections, on fatalities, on recoveries since April 29. And therefore, what we have is just hearsay.
So what we're saying is that if the president has declared that the country is COVID-free, so any evidence regarding COVID that we see around the world then means nothing to the citizenry of Tanzania.
It means absolutely nothing to the government of Tanzania. Nothing. And by the way,
Yes.
it is now a crime to say that there is COVID-19 here. It is a crime that will send you to prison.
How did that get entrenched in the law, if I may ask?
Well, regulations, ministerial regulations.
Yeah.
They passed online content regulations which say that if someone issues a report about any pandemic without the approval of the authorities, they commit a crime and they go to prison.
So coming back into this run-up to the election in just a couple of days, you have clearly stated that if the election is not conducted in what you have called free, fair, transparent manner, which includes swearing in your agents and allowing your agents to get into the polling centers, and the manner in which the election results are announced and transmitted, then you are not going to accept the election. Now, I want us to look at it from the side of if then you are not declared the winner of this election, you are unlikely to accept the result if all these measures are not met. And the question that Ndu asked you is it a risk you're willing to take to call for people to protest, to expose them to any kind of harm that may come their way? Yes, you've said that this is peaceful demonstrations is a way of pushing for better and cleaner and better democracy around the world. But let's not forget that in all those places that we've seen, most of the times there are deaths that are reported. Is this a risk that you're willing to take for your supporters? That some of them may get injured, some of them may die?
I do not intend for someone who survived a dastardly assassination attempt 3 years ago. I'm not willing to see anybody killed. But a democracy has to be demanded, and the democracy has to be fought for. A democracy has to be paid for. We are not going to accept oppression, and we, as I said, we will do what the democratic world has always done through the edges, protest.
Tundu, do you fear for your security? Do you fear for your life? Like you've just said
Of course I do.
just now that you survived an assassination attempt, as you've put it, some years ago, and you were shot and had to leave the country. Coming back into the country and facing all of this at this time, and then going into the presidential election in about 2 weeks, do you fear for your own safety and security?
Those who shot me 16 times 3 years ago have remained at large. No investigation has ever been done. There is no suspect, no arrest, nothing. And therefore, I don't feel very secure. But that has been the lot of every Tanzanian citizen for the past 5 years. So it's not only me who doesn't feel secure. Every other person here lives in fear of their lives. They live in fear of their freedom. They live in fear of their property, because all these things have come under sustained attack in these 5 years of the Magufuli regime.
Tundu, as we wind up this conversation, you are the presidential candidate for the main opposition party, Chadema, And there are other candidates as well. Just for purposes of our audience, how many other presidential candidates are there in Tanzania in this election? And what is their sentiment about the upcoming election?
Apart from myself and President Magufuli, who is the incumbent, there are 14 other presidential candidates. But seriously, this is a two-horse race. Those 14 other candidates are inconsequential. They are not going to affect the results. This is a two-horse race. It's either me or President Magufuli.
Asante sana for speaking to us today. Antiphas Mugwai Tundu Lissu, the presidential candidate for the Chadema party in the upcoming presidential election in Tanzania. We wish you all the best and allow us to get in touch with you again just before the election so we can touch base on what your campaign has been doing.
Thank you so much for having me, and my apologies for the previous connectivity problems.
No,
Thanks,
thank
Tundu. It
thank
worked
you
out
very
well.
much for your time, sir.
Thank you. Say hello to everyone in Nairobi and in Kenya. They are my people as well.
Okay.
Yes, we will.
They've
And they
heard
can
you.
hear you.
Okay.
Asante sana. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN Home and online, www.spicefm.co.ke and Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. 4 minutes to 8. Keep it right here. We want to take a quick break and then we'll be back with more conversations.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
Right, so the
FM.
things I was saying about that suspension, if it has not followed the law, then yeah, it's illegal. In terms of you did not get the proper summons, you did not get to explain yourself, you have not received even the verdict of the Electoral Commission properly, then there are issues. What is of concern to me is what he's clearly saying, that this election is going to happen. It's all indications, according to him, are that with this electoral commission that has been ordered by the president, who is the party is the one that has picked all the commissioners, they've been told, do not dare announce a winner from the opposition. Then clearly we are going to a situation where CCM's candidate is going to be declared the winner and the Chadema candidate is going to reject the outcome of this result and call for mass protests and demonstrations across the country.
It seems like you don't even need a crystal ball to see what's going to happen here.
Yep.
Because, I mean, it's already been prescribed from the beginning. And those who may be living under what fear of the present administration already been ordered what to do. So what are you looking at? You already know what the situation is going to be based on what he has said here. So there's even no room for speculation or what you think should be or what could be. You've already been told you will not announce a winner.
Is there a likelihood
any
that
other
we will
party.
see peaceful demonstrations in Tanzania?
Well, is there likelihood that we'll see a free and fair election?
I think that one we've already seen. There's a likelihood, but not a high likelihood. The higher likelihood here from our crystal ball is it's going to be what Tundu Lissu will call not free, not fair, not credible.
Essentially, what we're asking is, will the president present himself as something other than what he has been presented as? Because that's what it boils down to.
Yep.
And the likelihood of that is?
Slim to none. Slim to none is what you're looking at here.
So the discussion ought to be around the outcome.
Yep. What is, because we know if Tundu Lissu calls for mass demonstrations and protests, what then is likely to happen beyond that?
And what will it present to the country?
Sure. And it's not as if these protests will come and the government of the day, quote unquote, is going to sit and take it, lying down.
Yep.
There will be a rebuttal.
There's going to be issues. Anyway, we're here to observe. Next Friday, we still have another Tanzania conversation with somebody else from Tanzania just to understand what's happening on the lie of the land. Good morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room, Spice FM, KTN Home and online. In the next hour, we talk about teen pregnancies. It's now 8 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay, so we still see some quite serious traffic on Mombasa Road this morning, trying to get into the CBD. That's moving on slowly. The Maimahiu situation continues, guys, for kilometers. There is a build-up there. We already see that around Salga, and then moving yesterday, there was some issues. So we also see that this morning. Maimahiu is going to be an issue this for some time in terms of traffic. So if you're headed in that direction, you want to keep an eye open because that's what is being served up just ahead of you. Let's look at Jogo Road. We're getting into the CBD. Is also looking a little tight. Getting to the City Stadium roundabout and then onwards into industrial area or into the CBD. That is moving very slowly. But apart from that, it doesn't look too bad except for what we see happening on Mombasa Road and what we see happening on Thika Road in and outbound of the city. So we'll keep an eye on that for you. You can also help us if you see somewhere you're stuck. Might be able to help somebody else out. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter or text us on 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only
2
way
minutes
to
after
start
8.
your day.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It is the Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN Home, online. As we begin this new hour, CT, what is today's proverb?
Well, today's proverb: wood touched by fire is not hard to set alight. We had someone who actually determined a response, Oscar Mondi. He said, it's really very simple. The inevitable will happen. I like that perspective.
The inevitable will happen.
The inevitable will happen, yes. It's an interesting perspective.
Okay. So that's the translation of this particular proverb?
That is a perspective that one Oscar Mondi has given.
All right. So let's talk about COVID-19 period and what we saw during this period in terms of teen pregnancies. Schools were closed. Children went home. Some of them were able to access online learning or radio learning or TV learning, but basically they were not under the supervision of teachers as they used to. And parents maybe would go out and spend a day out away from their children. Unsupervised children, spike in the number of teen pregnancies reported across the country. And this matter started a couple of months ago when a report came out of Machakos, and it was Ukambani counties, Machakos, Kitui as well. And we were talking about the number of teenagers then who were presenting themselves in health facilities seeking care because they're pregnant. And what was happening was there was now an increase in the number of pregnancies. What is the situation now?
Well, those numbers haven't, since we got those numbers that time, we haven't seen another collated report from around the country in terms of what exactly has been happening. What has come out, though, is that there have been those then who are moving along with their pregnancy. And then you also have seen a number of terminations taking place. And this then has risked the lives of many of these young girls because of, obviously, they are at a young age and they don't want to find themselves pregnant while in school and such, and taking the responsibility when they don't have the financial muscle to be able to do so. It still is a problem. It still continues to be a problem. It has risen during the time of COVID, that's for sure. But it has also come out from many quarters that it is not only because of COVID that you see teenage pregnancies. It may have risen because then people are young girls were then idle because of the fact that they have not been in school, and so this has affected this. However, even when in school, you did see a heightened number of teenage pregnancies in the country. COVID just exacerbated the situation, but it was not the sole reason behind teenage pregnancies in Kenya.
What are the other reasons? What is it that sees us find so many cases of teen pregnancies? We have seen many accusations. Sometimes, those that are taking care of the children, either at home or at school, teachers have been accused. People at home have been accused. There's also the issues of abuse. But where is it that then the society goes wrong and we're not able to really protect our children until they get to that age where they can make this decision?
The truth of the matter is that there's ignorance, and then the choice of ignorance when it comes to the fact that young girls are sexually active. Nobody wants to come out and say that this is the situation, that young girls are sexually active and they're not getting the right information in terms of what they should do to either, one, protect themselves against not just pregnancy, but sexually transmitted infections and diseases, but then the realization and the acceptance of the fact that young people are sexually active, more so than they were 20 years ago. And so a lot has been turning the blind eye to that and saying, well, okay, we're not going to deal with it because it's not an issue. Well, it's clear that it is an issue, and that you have more young mothers now than you did 20 years ago. You have many more girls dropping out of school. You have many more young girls then whose parents have taken the decision to marry them off as a result of them being pregnant. And so by virtue of that, you have many more young wives. And many now have said, okay, you, if our daughter gets pregnant, then you will carry the responsibility, make sure that she finishes school, this, that, and the other thing. But the acceptance that many young girls or many younger people are more sexually active in this generation than they were in the previous is something that has not been accepted.
There's also the reality that there are many more people now than there were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. But exposure, media. We live in the information age. And in the information age, younger people are exposed to things that adults from previous generation would probably not encounter until they were actually adults or they had reached a certain age of consent. But you find that because of this age of information, people young, when I say young, even under the age of 10, young people are exposed to things that older people, even their own parents, would never even dream of, things that they themselves would not even consume.
Right.
So the availability of this, you asked about the contribution. Yes, it helps to fuel this particular fire nicely. It contributes very, very significantly. And then there's the question of parental supervision. School, in many, many ways, has helped with that. Because when children are in school, it means that they are sequestered in a particular place for a particular time, and there's a limit to what else they can do other than simply learn. Now you remove them from that particular setting and you bring them to a home setting that was only common during holidays. If you look at the pattern of even pregnancies that occur during holidays, there was a spike during holidays. Now here you've had a holiday for how many months?
6 now.
Precisely. So you present a situation where the parents are busy trying to eke a living. So this parental supervision that you'd expect is actually not as possible. You can discuss it theoretically if you wish, but the practicality of it is minimized. Young people will interact, as we've seen. And because of this, all manner of crazy things that you had previously thought would not happen would happen. And it's not because the parents expose them to this, but it's because they themselves have the inquisitive mind and will figure it out. So the communication age in which we live in has contributed significantly to some of these issues. But you correctly put it in an absence of actually ensuring that there's an entrenchment in teaching certain values with regards to sex, sexual life, sexual safety, and then our fear of actually openly discussing sexual matters with younger people.
Yeah. And it's really it's a thing that must be overcome, because then we're going to continue dealing with this, because people are going to be up in arms asking the why, like they did in July when we saw these reports come out from around the country. Everybody was asking why. It shouldn't be the question. Actually, you shouldn't be surprised. If you're not having these conversations, you shouldn't be surprised at these outcomes. Right? You shouldn't be surprised at these reports that you see when thousands of girls across the country are having this or are getting pregnant when you haven't had the conversation.
Let's bring in somebody then who understands the matters of education, also understands the matters of teenagers. And this is the Sub-County Director of Education from Homa Bay County, Madam Ziada Osano. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We're well,
Good
thank
morning.
you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Situation Room, and we thank you very much for speaking to us today.
Thank you also.
Now, Ziada, you've had our introduction to the issue. The issue is teen pregnancies during this COVID-19 period, and even looking beyond, before the COVID-19 and even beyond COVID-19. Very many issues of concern coming up. The issue of sex education to the teenagers, the issue of parental control, the issue of management in schools. What is your perspective before you give us the statistics that we have in Homa Bay County?
Thank you. I think it has come out so clearly, the fact that it is assumed that teenage pregnancies the numbers have escalated because of the COVID issue. It would just come to us as a point of knowledge that teenage pregnancy has always been here with us because of the factors you have so enumerated. Like we have cultural issues where parents think it is really a big deal talking about the sexuality with their own children. This is one of the major causes because children do not understand themselves. Most of them do not understand their sexuality, and there's no adult who is ready to disclose to them the expectations and how they should conduct themselves. We have also had issues of these learners who are in school, and you were talking about the administrative cases in school. We have our teachers in school who have also trained as guidance and counseling personalities. They have tried to do the much they can, but it has not been quite 100% effective. Because we know that if it is not a solid ground where parents are
Sorry,
involved,
Madam Ziada, we have an issue with the line. Just as we try to sort that out, you had talked to our producer, John. The issue that she's raising, yes, she's talking about actually, in school we have teachers who are trained in guardians and counseling. So they're able to
Guidance, not guardians.
Guidance. What did I say?
Guardians, yes. It's that day.
It's Friday. Guidance and counseling. All right. So, what of what importance is that to have those in schools, and then why can't we use them in the community? Why can't we use them in churches? Why can't we deploy them?
Guidance and counseling has been a requirement in schools from time immemorial. But they also doubled up as career advisors. How effective they are is a totally different question. And what it is that is required for someone to be employed in such a position has been a subject of debate for the longest time. But what is certain is this. We've hanged on to a certain belief that just the existence of such a position in a school would warrant there being a safety net for young people. Because when people talk of pregnancy, yes, we focus on the young girls because they're the ones who get pregnant. But the argument has been you need to have a program that talks to the people who are likely to get them pregnant as well, the young men. They also need this education. Now, there's also the argument that people who are much older contribute to this significantly. Okay? So now, it's a question of societal norms and moralities. So how do you fight this in communities where people think that marrying young girls is a wonderful thing? How do you fight this when the community sees no problem with it at all? And in this country, many of our communities don't have that big a problem with a young girl getting married.
It's even encouraged because, I mean, again, like you talk just about traditions and culture and things like that, it's even encouraged in some cultures that the best thing to do is to marry a young girl for several physiological, other reasons that come into play. And you say that so she can also grow with her children, grow with the family, that kind of thing. So it's accepted in many places. But mine is that this education has to come from a very young age. And, some have even advocated to the point where they say by the time a child knows that they're either a girl or a boy is when you should be having these conversations. By the time they're out in the playground playing at 6, 7, 8 years old, they're already formed.
What is this conversation?
They've
We
already
keep
been
talking about,
socialized.
we need to teach them about sex. What is this conversation? What's the content of this education?
First of all, even just plainly even knowing your body. You would be very surprised that there are girls at the age of 18, 19 who don't know the functions of their reproductive system. Don't know how it works, don't know what it does. So anybody who comes and tells you that they want to do 1, 2, 3, they would actually go along with it, really actually not knowing that the end result would be pregnancy. Even just
they
one.
haven't been taught in school.
No.
So what is it that we see then teachers doing? And Madam Ziada Osano, the Sub-County Director of Education in Homa Bay County, is back on the line. We hope that the line is now clearer and better. Madam Ziada, this issue of sex education has been a conversation and a debate in the national space for a number of years now. I'm asking, how do we define this sex education? What is the content of this sex education that you're talking about? What is it that the education officers or the stakeholders in education, teachers, what is it that they teach children?
Okay, thank you. When it comes to sex education, we advocate that what is covered in the syllabus, the teachers should go beyond it. Because what is actually covered in the syllabus entails just what is comprised in the body. But when we have to do sex education, even in our schools, what we advocate as education officials is that learners should be taught to understand themselves, understand their bodies, understand the changes that they would undergo as they develop from one stage to another. And then with that, they should be able to know how to manage themselves individually and also depending on their sexuality. All this is comprised of sex education in our schools. Most of it may not be entrenched in the syllabus, the current syllabus. That's why if you have listened time and again, there has been need for review of the syllabus coverage so that what is entrenched in the syllabus concerning sexuality becomes a little bit broader. Although currently the syllabus that the Ministry of Education offers begins to offer sexuality and of course growth systems from class 6 as you move on up to Form 2. But it is not very comprehensive, and that is why a review of it is necessary and maybe in progress by KICD so that it becomes more comprehensive to enable the learners to understand themselves more.
Does this particular education require reinforcement? Because yes, students spend a considerable time in school with their teachers, but when they leave school, if what is taught isn't reinforced in a social setting or in a home setting, how do you actually expect these values to be entrenched?
This is where we have been trying to have a linkage where we are talking about parental responsibility in bringing up our learners and our children, and especially those of them who now are out of school. And we are all aware that they are not just out of school when they are done with school. They are always out of school even when they break for school holiday. So the ministry has tried to work it out that we have parental linkage and so that we take up parental responsibilities as parents, so that the parents are also able to take up their role of bringing up their own children in the right way. And if they also understand the idea that they should talk about sexuality with their own children, it will help in assisting what the teachers are already entrenching in the learners when they are in school.
When I hear this conversation this way, Siti, what I get is it needs to start from, other levels of society, even before it gets to the children. Why is it that parents are not comfortable having this conversation with children? Why is it that adults are not comfortable having this conversation with children? Because teachers are adults just like everybody else who's not a teacher. If we as a society are not able to really have that conversation, sit down with your son, your daughter, and tell them, teach them this sex education, if we're not able to really bring our minds and our comfort levels to a point where we can talk about this, how are we going to do it?
It would be very, very difficult, of course, because at the end of the day is that, you can't pass on what you don't have, right? And even something that you're not comfortable with, it would be very difficult to then pass it on to somebody else and expect that individual to be comfortable with it at all. And I think that we're still living, especially here where we are, we're still living in a time where just the very talk of sex and sexual relations is taboo. It still carries with it a very heavy weight of taboo, that you still don't have that open and honest conversation. And everything about sex has nothing to do with the physiological, but has everything to do with the moral. Because, as CT often says, it's something that you only discuss or do in the dark with the lights off and doors closed. And if you can put it in a bunker underneath the earth, that's when you can have that conversation. But it needs to be open, because guess what? It comes out into the open. You have thousands of girls who are pregnant, and then parents are wondering what happened and where did all of this come from? It's a reality. The conversations are not being had from parents to even to each other. Forget about children. To each other, one to the other. These conversations are not taking place. How then do you expect it to happen now for children, for them to understand? When parents one to the other are not having it, or partners are not having it with one another, it's not possible then to now teach your children. What are you going to teach? How do you pass on something that you do not have?
If you want to understand just how deeply rooted certain societal norms are, it's in looking at this subject that we're now discussing. Because it isn't the ability or the willingness. It's like parents prefer to be in denial. They prefer to simply assume that things will work themselves out in one way or the other. And yet, if you look at the times, they're being overtaken by events and by time. It's a very uncomfortable situation when your own children may understand this subject or are willing to discuss it more than you. So how exactly do you even take reins of it and take charge of it? And they will see and they will understand that you're uncomfortable with it. It's a very odd thing, Eric, but when in HIV and AIDS research or even in care and treatment, one of the things that was found was some of the biggest hindrance to actually proper care and treatment was the caregivers themselves. Because you couldn't discuss HIV without discussing sex. And this is something people were uncomfortable with.
Yep.
And your participant, your patient, your client can see this. And when they see this, then what it means is they limit what they're going to tell you. And their comfort in talking to you and explaining it is what helps you even understand how best you can assist them.
Yep.
But if they can see you're really uncomfortable,
They're going to stop.
they are going to sort of like veer around it.
They'll veer around it.
Talk around
so even
it.
when you talk about teachers in school, and Ziada Osano is on the line with us, Madam Ziada, even teachers, are teachers comfortable talking sex with their pupils and students?
Yes, our teachers, because most of the students you find they are just related to them in terms of student-teacher relationship. So when we have our teachers and our learners, the kind of relationship they are in gives it an easy avenue for them to talk about sexuality with their learners without any barriers. It is a little bit different from when we have the case of a parent and a child. Because the case of a parent and a child, the parent may feel a little bit uneasy. That is where we are talking about cultural setting, where parents may think it is a bit unusual for them to talk about sexuality with their own children. But the teachers do it perfectly because they don't have any barriers between them and their learners. And so in school, it has been more effective as compared to if we talk about the discussion of sexuality between parents and their own children.
What sort of training do these teachers undergo to be able to be proficient in these discussions?
We have special teachers in each and every school who are trained in guidance and counseling. These teachers head a department in our institutions called the Guidance and Counseling Department, under which they also have teachers who work with them, who have undergone counseling training. But when we talk about the general training of teachers concerning what they can talk about sexuality in school, then in their training in our institutions of where they train as teachers, we just have child psychology. That is a course in which they learn a lot about children, their development, and the stages they undergo, and how they can handle these learners of different stages. And remember, our training of teachers goes per age. We have special training for teachers who are going to handle learners who are from maybe in our primary institutions, who are maybe from the age of 11 up to around 14. And we have a different set of training for our teachers who handle our learners who are also undergoing sexuality challenges, who are between the ages of 15 to 18. And so their training is very specific, but it is backed up with our guidance and counseling departments in each of our every institution.
Let's take a break here and then we'll continue this conversation after the short break, taking a look at weather and traffic. We are speaking with Madam Ziada Osano. She is the Sub-County Director of Education in Homa Bay County, talking about teen pregnancies, sex education among our teenagers and children. What is it that needs to be done in order to start fighting this rising number of cases of teenage pregnancies? And what is going wrong? What is it that the education sector can do? What is it that the parents can do? The religious sector as well. All of them. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM, on KTN Home, and online 26 minutes after 8. We'll be back shortly.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. The weather with Spice
Okay,
FM.
so Nairobi is looking just partly cloudy this morning. Highs of 28 and lows of 14. Partly cloudy conditions in Nyeri at 18 degrees, going to highs of 26 with thunderstorms expected later on. Looking like a wet weekend in Nakuru as well. Today, though, highs of 24 and lows of 13. Eldoret experiencing rain this afternoon with highs of 22 and lows of 12. Kisumu will also be wet this afternoon with highs of 28 and lows of 19. Kakamega will experience rain later with highs of 26 and lows of 15. Partly cloudy conditions all through in Mombasa, highs of 30 and lows of 24. Rain expected in Malindi, going to high of 29 and lows of 25. Thunderstorms expected in Kampala later, with highs of 25 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam, highs of 32 and lows of 23. Partly cloudy conditions throughout today. Johannesburg, partly cloudy, highs of 22 and lows of 13, while Lagos continues to experience rain with highs of 29 and lows of 23. Okay, still an eye on my Mahu this morning, and there's quite the traffic headed out of the city today. It is Friday, so we expected to see heightened levels. Just didn't expect to see it this long. So if you might be stuck there, just know that that's what's up ahead. Mombasa Road easing out just slightly, and traffic then still heavy around the SGR, moving towards Cabanas this morning. Okay, getting off a Figure Road and into the city centre. We won't have too much. It's not too bad, but right around Garrett clogs up just a bit. Spice FMKE, that's how you can get to us in case you're stuck somewhere. The eastern and southern bypasses are open, guys, in case you need to use a longer route, but you won't be stuck in traffic. Okay, or you can text us 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
All right, so we're still on Kenya's biggest conversation this morning, and we're looking at teenage pregnancies in the country and trying to understand why we saw the rise, make some sense in terms of COVID-19 and the idleness that we saw take quite a number of young people by storm. But then still asking ourselves the question that why is it so high in this country? And we're with the Sub-County Director of Education, and Madam Osano is talking with us this morning about this. And Ziada, just to continue looking at this, the question then is, I mean, you talked about the fact that it is teachers, right, who are comfortable having this conversation with young people. If that is the case, why then do we see the spike? Or is it that young people want to get pregnant? Are they ready to start families so early? Why do we see such high numbers? If they are understanding what's going on and the teaching is actually taking place in schools, why the problem?
Ziada Osiano is with us on the line. She's the Sub-County Director of Education for Homa Bay County. Just getting her back. I think she's stepped away from the phone for a moment. So your question is why what?
Well, I mean, before we went to this break, she had said that, teachers are engaging students, engaging learners, and saying there's this understanding. We know what's going on. We are comfortable having this conversation. If one thing could translate to the other, then you would say that if you have this understanding and you know what's going on and you know how to be safe and protect yourself, then we wouldn't see such high numbers of teenage pregnancy if that teaching is going on. So what could possibly be the explanation for this?
It's not just the teaching.
And not just COVID, because this was happening before COVID.
Ask yourself this question. Who do you think is the greater influencer? The teachers or the peers?
Peers.
Precisely. So, even as you teach, that information is competing with other information. And
Indeed.
yes, go ahead, Eric.
She was saying that teachers have been taught, yes, and they are better placed than the individual parents. Yes, indeed. Just the same way, even traditionally, it was the aunties, not the parents who would talk to their children. It was the aunties and other members of the extended family who would talk because of that level of comfort. But even the way we are now, and we see the teachers speaking to their pupils and learners, do they get to a level where the children feel comfortable enough to go to the teacher asking questions, or is it just one-way communication with the teachers? That's one point that I always ask myself. And actually, she's back on the line. But Ziada Osano, when you talk about, the teachers are very well placed because they're trained on how to speak to the children. They have gone through guidance and counseling, and they are members of the guidance and counseling club. And so they're in a better position to talk to the children. The question is, do they actually get that trust of the children in such a way that the children would come to ask them questions?
Yes, in most times, they do win the trust of the children because most of our learners, and from early ages, they tend to trust their teachers more. So we have had cases in our institutions where our learners
have confided in teachers, and they have been able to give teachers information that even their parents are not aware about. And in such cases, you'd find it is the teachers who would take it as an initiative to call upon the parents, even to inform them about what their children are undergoing. We have even had cases of learners who, for example, undergo the challenges of menstrual cycle. Their parents are not even aware, but they find it more comfortable to let the teachers have the same knowledge. So we have always encouraged such kind of teachers, especially those who work in these departments of guidance and counseling, to liaise very closely with the parents in such instances, call the parents so that they also have a one-on-one between the parent, the child, and the teacher. So that the child also gets comfortable to make the parents aware of what's happening within them.
So why would we then continue to register such high numbers of teenage pregnancies across the country?
Hello?
So why do we still continue to register such high numbers of teenage pregnancy across the country? If the understanding is that, even just at school, young people are comfortable to talk to the teachers about this and they are then given this correct information, why then do the numbers continue to rise?
The reason why the numbers continue to rise, one, is because not every learner will be able to divulge the information to the teacher. It cannot be 100%. Secondly, the guidance and counseling that is offered in our institution does not encompass all the learners all at a go. Guidance and counseling is voluntary. It is on a voluntary basis, so there must be need for the learner to undergo the same. Apart from general life skills, which they also receive in school, which is general, the guidance and counseling is individualistic. And so if we have learners who have not seen the need to undergo the same, such kind of learners are in the risk of exposing themselves to activities that will lead them to become teenage mothers. We also have instances where they are not free with their parents, and we know teachers have them within certain months. There are certain months they are with the parents. And at this time, if the parents have lost grip of the children, just like the teachers can also do when they are in school, for those of them who are day scholars, who are not boarders, we are still bound to have teenage pregnancies, and we are still bound to have learners who become pregnant at a very young age.
Do you have programs where you actually allow the students to talk to each other on this very subject of sex?
Yes, we have. We call them the Talk Club, Talk It Out clubs in our schools, where we have sessions of learners just sitting on the days when they have clubs. The only curtailing incident about this is that on the club days in our institution, not all learners are in the same club. So when we have Straight Talk Club, it will only have a few learners. Others will be some other different clubs. So they may not be able to benefit from the information they get from their peers.
But do you think that all the students should benefit from such a program?
Yes, all the students should benefit from.
So why not make it mandatory?
It is not 100%. That's what I'm telling. So Straight Talk involves learners on their own doing sexuality talks with their own peers. So it is on an individual one-to-one basis, but we also have the club. So members of that club tend to benefit more than others who are not part of the club.
So the question is, why not make this club mandatory?
Maybe that is now some challenge for us as a ministry to think about, so that maybe a club like Straight Talk can be made mandatory for all learners. It would maybe be a source of some kind of engagement for all learners to be able to benefit from it.
I think in order for us to be able to address this, we have to start from points of looking for where where we are not getting it right, so that then we can start addressing. The fact of the matter is many of the teenagers, for example, who have gotten pregnant this year have been to school. So they have interacted with teachers, and you're telling us that teachers are at a very good position to inculcate sex education and teach about sexuality. And yet, all these people who have now become pregnant have passed through a teacher at some point or the other, but this message did not sink. So what is it that is not working, and how can we address what's not working?
Okay. One of the things that I know is not working for us is the influence the peers have among themselves. Because we have a lot of peer influence. You find peers who are relating with each other, they tend to feed information to the others, and it spreads very fast. And peers of the same sex believe themselves more than they tend to believe adults. So you realize that when a peer would tell the friend what they think is right, which may not necessarily be right, the friend would easily buy that to want to fit in the setup of their peers, different from what they imagine the adult is telling them, who they feel may not be in the same class with them, class in quotes, because actually we do not have classes. But they want to fit with their own age sets and their own age groups. So they tend to involve with the activities that their colleagues are involved in, some of which pose them danger, and they end up like being pregnant at a very early age.
Now, we saw high numbers of young girls getting pregnant in the country just this year alone. And of course, this affects so many things, even going back to school, whenever that will happen, or then getting back into school if they have these children, because then we also know that you have high rates of other things like termination of pregnancies, abortions, and such things. Moving forward, how then, because to me it's still stuck in my mind that something along the line is not working. Even if we have this education that's taking place at school, even if we have this peer education that's happening, peer-to-peer contact, still there's something that is not working. And I'm saying, or I'm asking, going forward now, to stop some of this from happening at the alarming rates at which they are, what exactly is it that can be done? Beyond reviewing mechanisms that are used, is there something else that can be done that we can say, really, young people have gotten to the realization and understanding of this is what is happening in my body?
Yeah.
Is there something more that can be done?
And as you answer that question, let's also hear this question coming in from Patrick in Vihiga. Good morning, Patrick.
Yes, sir. Good morning. How are you?
We're fine, thank you.
Yeah, I'm following up the discussions over the topic.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with the lady.
Yep.
But from the policy desk, that is what should be done, but it is not happening really.
Mm.
Yeah, in fact, there is no teacher who is really committed to embark on such education and give the children the guidelines required.
Why?
I think it's a matter of attitude and lack of interest in the matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
Teachers spend a very short time with the children at school, but when they go out, there is this peer influence.
Okay.
You know, the teacher will teach, give people information, but someone outside there, like the border men, will give these girls incentives, and they just fall in the trap.
Okay.
So what the lady is saying is what should happen. But practically it is not happening.
Kwa ground vitu ni different.
Eh?
Kwa ground vitu ni different.
Quite different. But from the policy desk where she's sitting,
yeah,
that is actually what should be done.
All right. Thank you very much, Patrick.
And remember,
Mm-hmm.
Teachers have a lot of work to do, and this one, it's voluntary, and it should be done outside the timetable.
Okay.
So it becomes a problem for the teacher just to have a class and teach them on sex education. However, we get some people like guest speakers who come and give education on the same. Yeah, but it's not
It's
mandatory.
not enough.
It's not and it's not
It's
mandatory.
not enough.
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Patrick. Ziada, what do you respond to that?
Okay. I have heard Patrick very well. What he's saying is true. Anasema kwa ground vitu ni different. It may be the case, yes. But we expect that what I have told you is what should be happening. Maybe what we need to do going forward is to enhance our monitoring of what is happening, and also just to encourage our teachers for attitudinal change, because these children belong to all of us. It is not only for the parents. The teacher himself or herself is also a parent. And so maybe going forward, we are seeing that we really need to do a lot of monitoring to ensure that we enhance these programs that are put in place to help our young children. It is a challenge on our part to ensure this will be done going forward.
What would it take to get this rolling? What would it take to improve the monitoring of the situation?
It will take a lot of movement into our schools, basically following up on the activities our teachers are doing and undertaking, and also ensuring that we do a lot of talking to them, because it's all about the attitude. You know, teaching is like walking. Every other person does it in their own way. So maybe just trying to streamline the process to ensure that what is being done is rather uniform and very, very appropriate.
Tell us the situation in Homa Bay County, where you are the director, the sub-county education director. How many teen pregnancies have we witnessed this year?
Oh, okay. We have the numbers, which we can. I may not be able to talk about here comprehensively,
Okay.
because we have those who are in school and we have those who are out of school. Those who are out of school and are still teenagers are still considered as teenage mothers.
Yep.
The ones who are in school are also teenage mothers. So the numbers to the Ministry of Health are quite different from the numbers to the Ministry of Education. Taking into account that when our young girls get pregnant, they find it easier to go to hospital and report about their kids rather than in school. So we may have a girl who is pregnant, but the hospital is aware. And during this pandemic time, because children are out of school, the ministry is not aware. And some of them are out of school girls. But what I can say for sure, the numbers are overwhelming, especially the rise during this COVID time. The numbers have grown double-fold. And as a ministry, we are trying to see a way in which we can retain these learners in school. There is a policy we have in the Ministry of Education of retention and re-entry for learners, where these learners who are already pregnant while they're still in school have to be retained in school. But those who are out of school, once they have undergone the motherhood successfully, they are re-entered into school so that they continue with their education.
Since you talk about re-entry, what happens if in that period they also get married? Are they also allowed back in school?
Yes, if they are still underage, if they have not reached the age of 18, we have always tried, because remember, in the country, it is education for all, and it is free basic education for all. So we have free education from primary school close up to Form 4. So we use the Ministry of Interior. That is where we have our deputy county commissioners boiling down to the chiefs and the assistant chiefs to be able to track these learners. Even if they are married and they are underage, we bring them back to school.
But beyond tracking them, and is there anything else you do to perhaps reduce the marriages of these underage girls and boys?
Yes, What has been done to reduce this marriage of underage is like getting hold of the perpetrators. We have also used the children's department, and we have used the police. We have gotten hold of perpetrators, especially those who marry children who are not of marriageable age, because we know an adult is 18 years. So if we find a perpetrator, that one is called a perpetrator because that is a criminal offense. Then they take responsibility for their actions because punitive measures are taken against such kind of people.
There's another question coming in from Milimo in Nairobi. Good morning, Milimo.
Good morning, Eric.
Welcome to the Situation Room. We have a question for Madam Ziada Osano.
Yes, of course. My question is, she has talked about sex education in school and how they have incorporated. Now there has been situation from the past where the same teachers have been found in scandals in situation whereby they have got into relationship with students. How effective or what measures have they undertaken? Because they are the same teachers whom she has said that some have been assigned to undergo those trainings to teach the students, but the same teachers are the one being found in scandals with the students. So what measures or what actions as the management or as the head of education, the director, they have taken in order to curb this situation? Thank you so much.
Okay. Madam Ziada, you can respond to that.
Thank you. I think what my brother has said there is very true. We cannot deny it. We have had incidences of teachers being the perpetrators and being the ones who are responsible for our early motherhood in our schools. One or two, that is the truth. I want to put it very clearly for all of us to know that that is a very punitive offense for a teacher. Actually, when one teacher is found to have, we call it, the offense is called carnal knowledge of any learner, of either sex, be it a boy or a girl, then punitively for us, that one is what we call the punitive measure is summarily dismissal. This teacher will not even undergo any hearing. This one, once it has been confirmed, the teacher will be summarily dismissed, will be deregistered from being a teacher. The only problem we have had concerning this is because we have had parents or even guardians who know that it is teachers who are responsible, and they have been able to think of sorting it out at their level without letting this be known. So we want to let the public know that once we are aware of who has perpetrated such an action, whether a teacher or a non-teacher, there are always punitive measures that the Ministry and the Teacher Service Commission, when it's a teacher, undertakes to punish these people, and they become responsible for the actions they have taken.
Ziada Osano, thank you very much for speaking to us. Ziada is the Sub-County Director of Education for Homa Bay County. We're talking about teen pregnancies, and we thank you very much for speaking to us. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, Spice FM, KTN Home, and online. We'd like to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home. Join us again Monday, 7 a.m. to 9 o'clock. But this show continues every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Spice FM. If you're in Nairobi, 94.4, Mombasa, 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru is 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, Nyeri, 90.9, and Malindi, 97.7, 7 minutes to 9.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nyeri. Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Public educator says on Twitter, please ask Madam Ziada whether school heads will accept external forums to engage the youth in their areas of interest to engage them in their clubs. So basically saying, we have other ways of engaging the youth. Like the way when Patrick called and said, sometimes we bring in, artists, people who are then peer influencers to these teenagers, come in and talk to them. Bring in, for example, musicians. And we have seen this happening a lot in various schools, but it's not coordinated county-wide.
All that is good, but believe me, if these students themselves do not get an opportunity to discuss these very issues among themselves and have someone listening in so you understand how they see this whole situation, because everything we're hearing is from the perspective of the teacher, the expert, the who.
It's top down.
Yes. What about these young people themselves? What do they think? Because it isn't as though this situation is something that they find very happy. No. They may be happily going about trying to have sex or having it without necessarily giving full thought to the consequences. And the consequences will be just as much as a shock to them as it is to the parents. So why not have these people whom we're talking about, this group of Kenyans, why don't you have them talk about it?
Talk about it, because you're absolutely right, CT. Because look at different statistics that we've seen around the country. Because we talked about, when you seem to have a rise in these cases when there's a holiday period. Guess what? You have a rise in these cases when even there's the weekend, Friday to Sunday. We looked at statistics around the country. Pharmacies getting young girls coming in between Sunday evening and Monday morning. And what are they coming to procure? Emergency contraception. Highest numbers of girls between 15 and 19, because they're required to give their age, coming into pharmacies around the country and getting this medication at that point. So it's not the process that they're concerned about. They're concerned about the consequences. Yes. So if they could understand the process, this exactly is what is happening, then guess what? Then how to deal with it, with whatever comes ahead, and because you've understood the process. And I have a problem because I don't think the process is being dealt with. I don't think that teachers are comfortable enough to talk with. I don't think that parents are comfortable enough to talk with their young people. And just like you said, it's not just young girls, it's young boys too. Because
who do you
this
think
is not immaculate conception. Young girls are not impregnating themselves. So young boys, young men, also need to have this conversation at the same time. We have this the sick side of things where older men are preying on younger girls and then they get pregnant. That is there too, which has to do with societal norms and behavior change and things like that. But at the very fundamental basics, at that basis, to have that conversation, to understand this is exactly what is going on, so that, guess what? If you make the choice, you have made an informed one. Not that you made a choice because you didn't really know what you were doing, which unfortunately is the case with the majority of these that we see.
The entire process of actually getting young people not just to hear what you have to say, but to have it entrenched in their lives, you honestly have to have their peers understanding it in the same way, because the larger discussion and what eventually leads to the action is had with their peers, not with their teachers, not with their parents, not with the special guests who come in to chat. No. Do you think all these young people who go to buy the morning after pill, where do you think they get this information from?
Exactly.
You think their parents sit down and tell them, look, after you've had sex, there's this thing called the morning after pill, or the teachers? No, but they have the information. Now, what else do they know that parents have no clue about?
Probably no more than they do.
Yes. So, again, it's a different
I agree,
situation.
and that's why I'm saying, you see, this, as they are having these peer-to-peer conversations, then they also want to have somebody who can respond. Not all of them have the answers, and they don't trust each other. They don't completely trust each other with having the right answers. So if they had somebody whom they consider an influencer in their circles, and that is not somebody who's an adult, but or even a priest, but somebody who is a cultural, social influencer.
But is knowledgeable on that particular
knowledgeable in the issue.
Yes.
Has gone through some training, has gone through this kind of talk before, then sitting there participating, that could help. So that you have this group of young people who are sitting down, and then they are also talking to this person that they look up to. If this person tells them, you know what, guys, so as I hear you saying this, and the other, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, I was in your age bracket, and this is what I went through. you can listen. I believe they could listen. It could maybe have an influence as
These
well.
conversations have to be moderated, Eric, and you're right. You are right. Because the discussion simply provides an opportunity for people to air out what they think, what they know. But a moderator, somebody with information and knowledge, is crucial. Because in the absence of that, actually, the discussions will not produce much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Keep it right here. In the next hour, we shift conversations, come back to politics. Religion's role in Kenya's politics is what we'll be discussing. We speak to the legal advisor in the Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims, Sheikh Ibrahim Lithome. This man has been involved in Kenya's political journey for a while. Part of Ufungamano, he's part of the Interreligious Council of Kenya and all. So we'll be seeking to understand religion's role in Kenya's politics. Good morning, 9 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything I spice it.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, so let's look at what else is running about on the streets this morning. Mombasa is still looking a bit crazy today. Coming all the way from the SGR, headed then towards, look at it, from SGR, head towards Nyayo Stadium. Moving quite slowly this morning, guys. Still, Mombasa Road is an issue. It's been that way all week. Hopefully some reprieve over the weekend, right? Also looking at Thika Road, getting into the CBD, not so bad. It's actually looking good some ways right now, okay? Getting into the CBD from Langata Road, from Gong Road, and also from the side of Hurlingham, also looks good as you then join Valley Road and head into the CBD. So good. Outbound, however, we still have the problem going towards Maimahu, and that's going to continue to be a problem until that is sorted out, guys. Apart from that, be safe. We'll look at it in a half hour again and see how that has changed. You can text us in the meantime, 40127, or tweet us, Spice FM KE.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
2 minutes after 9. The conversation continues. This is Spice FM. We broadcast from Nairobi, 94.4. We are in Mombasa, 87.9. Malindi, 97.7. 90.9 in Nyeri. 96.0 in Nakuru. 96.7 in Eldoret. And Kisumu is 102.5. Of course, we appreciate every time you reach out to us via SMS 40127 or by calling in 0719012600 or on our social media handles, Spice FM KE, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube, where we live stream the show. Let's talk about the political situation in the country. Let's talk about the role of religious leaders. We have discussed this many times before. Whenever we have religious leaders coming into the studio, we ask them, what is it that we see now from the pulpits of the religious organizations vis-a-vis what we saw earlier in the push for better governance? But before we do all that, CT, today's proverb.
Yes, indeed, it is appropriate. Wood touched by fire is not hard to set alight.
Wood touched by fire is not hard to set alight.
Yes.
Good.
I'm waiting.
Yeah, I'm also waiting. We want to hear at the end of this. At the end of this show, CT Muga is going to give us the context of this particular proverb and the story behind it. So, back to this conversation. the issue about politics, religious leaders. When we saw what was happening at Kennel on Sunday, very many people were coming and saying, look, this is because religious leaders, church leaders have allowed politicians to come and speak in church, to come just because somebody is contributing money, you give them a platform. And they take advantage of that platform, they address the congregation. We don't see that happening in mosques. We don't see a lot of that happening in Muslim ceremonies or in Hindu ceremonies. It mainly is happening in the church. However, even in Islam and in Hinduism and the others, we still have had leaders in the past who have been very vocal about governance, who have, whenever there's something that is happening, we see them pushing and coming out clearly to say, no, this is the wrong direction we're taking. From a religious standpoint, from a moral standpoint, we're heading the wrong direction, or we're heading in the right direction, and we encourage this to continue. In a clamor for a new constitution, religious leaders are the ones that came together, and they formed the Ufungamano Initiative, which brought in together religious leaders from all faiths, came together. Then political leaders from the opposition also joined, civil society also joined, and there was a whole push and clamor in one direction saying that this ought to be a people-driven process, which now made Yashpal Gai, when he was appointed by President Moi, to say, okay, now we are also going to come and join in this conversation. So what is it that we see now with the current religious leaders? We ask this all the time of the Christian leaders that we speak about. Let's bring in Sheikh Ibrahim Lithome. He is a legal advisor to the Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims. Sheikh Ibrahim Lithome is not new to issues of pushing for good governance, pushing for adherence to the Constitution and the rule of law. He has participated in this before. Let's get the perspective. Good morning, Sheikh.
Good morning to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very much.
In the room this morning is Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, and CT Muga. Now, Sheikh, the question just comes straight up. What is the role of religious organizations and religious leaders in Kenya's politics?
I think the question should be, what is supposed to be the role of religious institutions and religion in the politics of Kenya? Or maybe somebody can even ask, does the religion have any role in the politics of the country? And the answer is yes. The religion has a very significant role. And as I just heard you say as I was joining the program about the Ufungamano Initiative, just for your information, I was part of the Ufungamano Initiative.
Yes, you are.
I was part of the People's Commission, and I worked with the people like Getari and the late Ndingi Manazeki. And from the Muslim community, we have the late Ahmed Khalif. You know, all the bad things that are affecting us in politics, we find their solution in religion. My belief, and this is informed by the religious teachings, religion is not just about preparing people to go to heaven. Religion is about preparing people to live well in this world before going to heaven. We don't go to heaven perpendicularly. We have to live here. Politics, it's about politicking. Yes, we don't. Now, religion is supposed to guide politics, because if you look at our constitution and if you look at the false promises, I'm calling them false deliberately, because most of the promises that we are given by politicians end up just being that. They just disappear into thin air after they get what they achieve. The solution to the many problems that we are having in politics lie in religion. Talk about lying. Religion will come and tell people, fear God, and don't tell people things that you're not going to fulfill. Talking about negative ethnicity, because our politics is ripe with tribalism, negative tribalism. I just need to know your second name, and I can tell you the political party that you support. This is how we are. It is religion that will come and tell you all of us are equal before the eyes of God. Our politics is ailing from inequitable distribution of resources. It's a religion that comes and tells you, fear God. You have been given this position of responsibility. Everybody is equal. Please make sure that the resources are divided equitably to all the people, shared equitably to all the people. about insults, insulting one another and ridiculing each other. It is the religion that will come and sanitize that. Because the religion is, we can say, it's a higher calling. Politics is a very low calling, just about interest in this world. Religion is about beyond this world. It's about being answerable or doing the right thing, whether somebody is watching you or not, because you know there is a higher power that is looking at me, and I'm answerable up there. And being in a position of leadership, you know, it is a position of responsibility, and you are answerable not only to the people, but to the creator of those people, you know. So for me, religion is supposed to sanitize politics. And it is not politics that is supposed to guide religion, but religion is supposed to guide politics. And religious leaders must stand up, because this is their mandate, stand up and tell them this is wrong and this is right. Yeah.
But how often do religious leaders do what you've just mentioned?
Unfortunately, we are doing very little, and that's why I said from the beginning, the question should be, what are religious institutions and religious leaders supposed to do in the politics of this country? It's because there is that expectation, what they ought to do and what they are doing. Unfortunately, most of us have let down Kenya, and instead of sanitizing politics and guiding politicians, unfortunately, we have fallen prey to the politics. We take sides without caring about where that direction we are taking will take this country, you know. So it's unfortunate that we follow the politicians instead of really guiding them. That's the problem.
Why do you think this is so?
I think vested interest. For me, this is vested interest. Because, for example, when you give a politician whose interest is just the political benefit, you give them a religious platform to advance their ideology, and then you've gotten it wrong. Just because maybe of some favor, when this person comes into power, maybe they will do this and that favor, or maybe a favor that you are gaining immediately. That is the problem. And let me talk about my religious community, because I can speak about it with authority.
Yep.
For us, everybody is equal. If the president of the Republic of Kenya today was a Muslim and he came to the mosque, there will be no special seat for him. He will be accorded the respect just because he's a leader. But if he comes late, he will sit at the back row there. And when he comes there, he has come there to get spiritual nourishment.
Right.
He will sit down, and the person presiding there, the imam, is the leader of that congregation, and he has to come there and listen. If he has to give his contribution, let him not take advantage of the contribution he's giving to the mosque and use that platform. He's not qualified to stand there and give a sermon. He can talk in political rallies, but not in the mosque. And that's why you will never see any politician, not that they don't ask us. I am a member of the largest mosque in Kenya, Jamia Mosque.
Yep.
It is known. It is a no-go zone for any politician. You want to contribute something? There is an office where we make contribution.
Yep.
Go and make your contributions there. You'll be paid by God. You're not making a contribution to a religious institution so that we clap for you. No, we'll tell you thank you, but the bigger reward, we expect it from God, not from people. So
But then-
this is the problem.
But then, Sheikh, there are
We
those
have
that will,
compromised.
there are those that will say that even from the Muslims, there are functions that have been organized by the Muslim leadership that then are you invite the politicians. So it's not in the mosque, but it's in other fora. So we'll see, for example, Muslim leaders going to State House or to Karen to break the fast. And then this obviously is attending a politician's platform, and the politician will obviously speak.
Yeah. You see, there is a difference between that religious platform being used by politicians and a politician inviting you there. Remember, besides being a religious leader or following a certain religious community, you're still a Kenyan. And you are interested in the politics of this country. If somebody invites you, he has an agenda, but the platform is not that religious platform. My problem is when the religious platform is used.
Yeah.
And when you go there, you listen to him. Then ask yourself, what is in the best interest of my community, of the religion, what is in the best community of this country, and I'm not saying that we have not been compromised. Most of us have been compromised. Let's face it. Then they have been compromised. But you're supposed to stand up, okay, I am from a higher moral calling than you, because you're just a politician, but I have that higher calling. I think your ideas are not right because of A, B, C. This is what you're supposed to do. Let us separate between these two things. A religious platform being used by a politician and a politician inviting religious leaders to his other platform, State House, or even your current home, your official current home, or whichever home, then you come and address. It is now our duty as religious leaders to tell him, we've heard you, we think this is right, we think this is wrong.
But now that's what we don't hear, Sheikh. That's what we don't hear.
And that's why I'm saying we need now, because these are human beings also, even religious leaders, they are human beings, okay? Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. So we need to call them. We need to tell them, look here, this is what we expect of you as religious leaders. And let me tell you, in 2007, 2008, when we realized the country is burning in front of our eyes, before our eyes we could see the country burning. I remember some Christian leaders calling me and telling me, can you talk to so-and-so among the Muslim leadership? Then we realized he has already taken a position. And I told them, can you call so-and-so in the Catholic circles? He has already taken position. And we had no fallback position. And we should be above the politics of the day, so that in case of anything, there will be a fallback position. And we have people who can call the politicians and tell them, look here, sit here, this country is bigger than you. But if you are embroiled in the politics of the day, if you are in Tangatanga or Keleweke or whatever, tomorrow it's like a father in a house. If you get embroiled in the quarrels between your children, tomorrow they have a dispute. Who do they go to for resolution? So we should be above politics and guide them. And in case of a dispute, we'll have the moral authority to tell them, sit here, President Uhuru, sit here, so and so. We think this is wrong. This is right.
In the teachings of the Quran, Sheikh, if I may ask, are there any guidelines as to what you would do with a leader who subscribes to the Islamic faith, who actually goes against those dictates in his politicking? What I mean is, do you prevent him from coming to the mosque? Do you send a group of people to have a little chat with him? What do you do?
Okay. Number one, we are told one of the duties of a religious leader is to enjoin what is good and forbid what is evil.
Yes.
Then how you do it, again, you're told, use your wisdom so that you get the best results out of what you do. And not everybody can enjoin good and forbid evil by an action of the hand. It could even be by word of mouth, or even by just showing that you don't like that. So our duty is, let's say there is a Muslim political leader who is going astray. Number one, we cannot stop them from coming to the mosque as a worshipper. Not as a leader, the political leader he is, but as a worshipper. They'll come there and we'll tell them, number one, we tell them, fear God. That position that you've been given, you'll be answerable before God. The moment you close your eyes, and because nobody has a contract with God that you die when you are 70 or when you are 80, it could be any time. We remind them of that. That death is imminent, it's coming anytime. And the moment you close your eyes, you'll be answerable before that God that does not take bribes, does not care what political function you support, and the rest. We'll tell them that. And if they continue, we'll even tell people, this is the wrong person to elect. Brothers, I don't know who I'm talking to, but I want to tell you this. These political leaders don't elect themselves. We elect them. So when we have bad politicians, it's a reflection of who we are as a people. So as a Muslim, we tell people, please, look at the qualities of the people that we are electing. Don't elect a person just because they belong to your tribe. Don't elect a person just because they gave you a kilo of sugar, just because they have promised you. Number one, elect a person who is God-fearing. Because from that person who is God-fearing, there will be no politics of lies. There will be no politics of division. There will be no that big animal dragon that is killing this country, corruption. There will be no divisive politics. All those negative things, we tell them. So we'll continue telling you can still come to the mosque, but to get spiritual nourishment, not to come and sell your agenda. And we tell you when you are wrong, we are going to tell you. And tell you the consequences here in this world and in the hereafter. We'll tell you from what is in the teachings of Islam.
Now, in a real life situation, how often do the politicians actually take heed or pay attention to the things that you tell them? By the way, my name is Muga.
Muga, okay, Muga, now I'm happy.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Muga, how often do they take heed?
Yes.
You know, sometimes very, very little, and especially depending on the season. When it is a season like, politician, Muga, they keep on changing depending on the season. If it is a season like this, where we are thinking about 2022, and each one of them is looking for those positions, they will listen to you at that time. But immediately after elections, believe me, they disappear into thin air and get into their tinted cars, and you don't even see them as they're passing, or they will even come and pray in the mosque and at the back row and make sure they disappear before there is a crowd around them. So for me, that should not stop me from talking to them. I will talk to them. In the Quran, we are told, وَمَا عَلَيْكَ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ. What is upon you is to convey the message. Now, unajua, even if they don't heed, they've heard you. They've heard you. Just like the hyena that spoke to the rock, said, "Rock, I'm speaking to you. Even if you're not listening to me, but I'm still speaking to you." So we should not stop speaking to them just because they are not heeding. And more than that, it's even for us, actually, we even tell them we are going to mobilize the people against you, and they fear that. I wish we could take that threat and make it a reality. And if Kenyans would listen to the religious leaders, of course, religious leaders that have no political baggage, tell your people, look here, we are heading towards election. We don't want a leader that spreads, malice. We don't want a leader who is corrupt. We don't want a leader. Don't elect them. So we should use those threats also, and they should not just be mere threats. We should make them real, actually, and mobilize. And we have ever done it in some areas. I'm not going to mention where Muslims are predominant. And we have told them in the mosque, look here, we don't want a political leader who is corrupt, who lies to you because it is un-Islamic and religious for a person to lie. Choose a person who is of good conduct, a person of integrity and the rest.
Sheikh, this is Eric Latif now asking the question. You'd say that even before you've been able to call out leaders, you've been able to speak directly to the people and tell them this is a direction that is that's going wrong. In fact, even during the Fungamano time, you actually took a position and you actively advocated that position. Now, in the current situation where we are in, we have leaders and what the leaders are doing, bad governance across the from national level to county level, and there's corruption. Is there an opportunity for religious leaders to come out and speak directly about, for example, say corruption, and not just, speak amorphously and say, people, we ought to live by the teachings of Mtume Muhammad? No, just say specifically, this particular county hospital was supposed to be built. It has not been built, or this amount of money appears to have been stolen. Is there such a platform for religious leaders?
I think we have the largest platform. On every Friday, like today, at Jamia Mosque, I have about 10,000 worshippers coming there. Every day, 5 times a day, there are people who come to the mosque. This is an opportune moment. And that's why, like 2 Fridays ago, if you monitor what is going on in Jamia, our sermon on Friday, which I delivered myself, was on hate speech. What does Islam say about hate speech? And we warned the worshippers about what happened in Rwanda and how hate speech can lead us to that. So this is an opportune moment because we can see what is happening, and especially what happened is so happening in Moranga, and it's likely to happen in other places. We could lead this country to the dogs, as they say. We could be another Rwanda. So this is an opportune moment for religious leaders. Okay, now unajua tunasema chumvi, salt is used to preserve meat when we didn't have refrigerators. But the problem now is when the salt itself needs to be preserved. That is the problem now. I want now to compare the religious leaders as the salt. Sasa chumvi ikiwa yenyewe imeharibika tafanya nini? Now we need to talk now to the salt, who are the religious leaders. You tell them, look here, you people, you have a duty. You're not supposed to keep quiet. You're supposed to talk. And you have this large platform every Sunday, every Saturday, every Friday, and every other day in these huge institutions that we have. We have to talk. And every of these political leaders, they subscribe to a religion. So this is the opportune time, and we need to call upon the religious leaders. Can we wake up? Can we see a David Gitari? Can we see Andingi Mwananzeki? Can we see a Bishop Alan? Is it Muga? Yeah. We need to see now those kind of religious leaders without fear or favor, talking out their mind, not telling their leaders. Because all these people go before their pastors. We have seen them kneeling down and people touching their heads and they were crying.
Yep.
We should make them now. Are you the person who was crying in church? Fear God. Can you lead this country in the right direction and the rest?
I think, I mean, even as you say that, there are certain moments when, or certain times during the week, Saturday, Sunday, Friday, when you have an opportunity to send the message to people. We are seeing things occurring politically in this country on a daily basis. So I would be very interested in seeing this moral voice all the time. I would be very interested in hearing this guidance all the time, as opposed to waiting for people to come into church, waiting for people to come into the mosque to hear a sermon, or waiting until something like Muranga happens for people to speak out and condemn it. So if there is no heartbeat all the time, getting people to realize and understand that it can't just be once, it must be all the time. If there's no voice like that, then there's a problem. Can we not have such a thing where it's all the time, this reminder constantly going out, and not just when you go to worship?
I totally agree with you, my sister. This should be something that is continuous, and we should not be reactive. We should be proactive, actually. We should be able to preempt such incidences like what happened in Moranga and other places. It's something that we're supposed to do any opportunity we get, be it a public forum, a burial, a wedding, and these days it's very easy for your voice to be heard beyond the limits of your religious institution. We have the mainstream media, the traditional media, we have the social media and the rest. So I think the voices of the religious leaders, and I want to say, we need to apologize to the Kenyans. We are failing Kenyans. Fellow religious leaders, we are failing Kenyans, and we shall be answerable before God. This should be our daily business. The daily business of politicians is to politic. Our daily business should be, this is right, this is wrong, you are answerable before God. So I want to agree totally. We have let down Kenyans, but all is not lost. So we should take up this opportunity now and continue talking and guiding our politicians. After all, they are also Kenyans, they are our people, and they are the children of God also, who have gone a little bit astray.
Sheikh, this is CT Muga again. There was a time when Sheikh Dor was actually a nominated MP. I'd like to know your views on this sort of situation. Do you think it is appropriate for more religious leaders to have such appointments or such nominations? And do you think that their positions would actually add a lot more credence or provide a soothing balm to the political situations that we find ourselves in?
Yes, I totally agree with you. It is right. It is wrong to try and keep religious leaders away from these political platforms like Parliament and other bodies. They should be there. And I remember, even when somebody like the Bishop Margaret Wanjiru was elected, people questioned her, now how are you going to balance between this? And she answered very well, and I want to agree with her. It's people like us who are going to sanitize the politics in that parliament. The problem of my brother Moka and Eric, sijui watu wakienda huko huwa wanapewa kitu gani. People change, I'm telling you. People who are reformists, when they were out there, the moment they go into parliament, they become conformists. That is one problem that we have. But we should have good people, God-fearing people, join the ranks of the other members of parliament and others, so that they can guide them. But we need to get the right people. And even if today I'm nominated by, let's say, a political party, but whatever I do should be above the political party's interest. Should be Kenya first, and what is it that God wants me to do? I've lost the voice now. No, it's back.
It's there. So let's take a break now, Sheikh, as we continue this conversation. Let's take a break. We want to see what's happening on the roads this Friday morning. We are speaking with Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome. He is the legal advisor to the Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims. He's a man who's been active in the push for good governance for many years. He's participated in the clamor for constitution, participated in the clamor for good governance. The question that we are asking this morning is the role that the religion should be playing in Kenya's politics. He's amended our question. It was religion's role in Kenya's politics, and it's actually a good amendment. What role should religious leaders be playing in Kenya's politics? 9:30. Time for us to take a quick break, see what's happening skywards and then on the roads. And then this conversation continues.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Traffic.
Let's take a look at what's going on the roads this morning. Still Mombasa Road, a little bit of a clog up there, but be able to get out of that without too much problems. Still slight traffic as you then try to head towards General Motors, but not too bad. Okay, so it's looking much better than it was earlier in the morning. Still outbound of the city is where we have some issues. On that Maimahi, that stretch is still a problem this morning, and police are doing their best to try and move traffic, but that's where we see it. Bad accident in Magumu this morning, and that has been a fatal one because of lane indiscipline, guys. And so we were hoping we'd finish the week without, but unfortunately that's going on. No traffic on Thika Road getting into the CBD, however, and so that looks pretty good. Not to forget, through the day, Spice FM KE or text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Spice up your life.
Partly cloudy in Nairobi at 21 degrees, going to highs of 28 and lows of 14 today. Partly cloudy in Nyeri as well at 19, going to highs of 26 and lows of 13 with a chance of showers later on. It's going to be a wet afternoon in Nakuru. Highs of 24 and lows of 13. Mostly sunny in Eldoret at 17 degrees, going to highs of 22 and lows of 12. Kisumu will be rainy this afternoon. We'll have highs of 28 and lows of 19. And in Kakamega as well, and the high will be 25 and lows of 16. It's partly cloudy in Mombasa at 28 degrees, going to highs of 30 and lows of 24. Malindi have some rain this afternoon with highs of 29 and lows of 25. Taking a look into Kampala, where it's likely to be a wet weekend. Today, highs of 24 and lows of 18. Partly cloudy conditions in Dar es Salaam. Highs of 32 and lows of 23. It's mostly sunny in Johannesburg at 14 degrees, going to highs of 22 and lows of 13. Lagos continues to send down the rain, 29 the high and lows of 23. Getting well into Friday evening in Beijing, 22 degrees and hazy skies. The smog and fog contributing to this, 23 degrees high and lows of 10. Clear in London at 7 degrees, highs of 14 and lows of 7. And Paris is rainy now at 15 degrees. We'll see highs of 16 and lows of 8. And we'll wrap things up this Friday with New York. 12 degrees now into Friday morning, sunny conditions and clear skies with highs of 22 and lows of 12.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
The next 27 minutes we
94.4
continue this
Spice
conversation with Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome. We also want you to have a conversation with the Sheikh. 0719-012-600 or SMS 40127. That's 0719-012-600. Sheikh, so yes, you've talk about, the leaders that we've had before, the religious leaders that we've had that have pushed for good governance. You keep mentioning those names, and it's instructive to note that you're not mentioning a current name. Should we then look at, identifying few current leaders and saying we hoist them into positions? For example, the leadership of the Interreligious Council of Kenya have a more vocal leadership and such, so that then we can have leaders from the religious sector who are speaking, and then maybe they'd be able to even shepherd the other religious leaders who have gone astray.
Yeah, it's unfortunate we keep on talking about leaders who are. It's as if we have a void now or a vacuum, but that is not true. We still have religious leaders. It's only that they have not taken up their positions, but we have them. And as you rightly said, we have the Interreligious Council of Kenya, which is a forum that brings together all the different religious communities in this country. And I think this is the high time. Father Joseph Mutie, who is the current chairman of the Interreligious Council, I think they should stand up and talk. And nobody should tell them, you have no business in politics. Remember, even when we were doing the Constitution of Kenya, somebody somewhere said that Wanjiko has no business in doing politics or doing the Constitution. It is the politicians who are supposed to deal with the Constitution. But we stood up and defied that very powerful individual who was there at a time when it was almost unheard of or unimaginable to stand up. And that's why we started the People's Commission, and Parliament started its own parallel process. But we are able to bring that process in Parliament to a halt until we negotiated, and that's how we ended up being in CKRC. Some of us joined CKRC from Mukungamano.
Yep.
We were representatives. So we just need to come together and realize the power that we hold. Eric, one problem is this. You see, between a buffalo and a lion, I think when we talk about physical strength, the buffalo is stronger. Unfortunately, the buffalo doesn't know its strength. That's why it is eaten by lions. If buffaloes discovered the strength they have, lions will never eat them. But so the religious leaders need to realize the power they hold. And that power is important in sanitizing our politics. So they should come out and exercise that without any compromise, with just one thing in mind: what is in the best interest of this country? What is it that God would want to see for his people in this piece of land that is called Kenya? So we need to rise up, and we have them. In every religious community, we have leaders who can stand up. They just need to be reminded that they have this duty. Now ambiwe wasipofanya hivyo wataulizwa na Mwenyezi Mungu, and they have no business just preparing us for heaven.
Yep.
We need to live in this world before heaven.
Mm-hmm. And just hearing what you've said, and in terms of the constant reminders that need to be given over time. Now, it would appear that, is there some kind of fear, just like you've said now, is it fear or not realizing really the power that you hold? Or when faced with these politicians, as it were, is there some kind of hero worship that takes place, and this is an individual who is greater than I? Because we don't hear, we don't hear the voices. So just, we say we're all human beings, even from the point of religious leaders. Is there some kind of fear or kind of honor or worship that goes to politicians?
Let me not talk about fear, but maybe it's a combination of several things. And one of them, in my view, is huyu ni mtu wetu, ni mtu wangu. So looking at the ethnic affiliation also has a role in this. And also, this is a person who is like returning a favor also. It's payback time. How am I going to castigate this person who helped me put up this and that, and contribution this number of million of shillings to our project here. And then there is that also, this is a leader, and you forget that you need to guide that leader. So it's a combination of many things. If it was maybe during the one party rule era, I would say maybe there is fear. But you see, even at that time, those terrible times, we still had voices of religious leaders like Alexander Muge and others who stood up. So I think it's more of Nimtuetu. This is ours. Whether it's wrong or right, he's ours. And it's payback time. There's some favors that he did. And it's like they're doing politics, let them do politics. And also, not realizing the consequences of allowing them to continue in that trajectory. You know, we could realize the magnitude and where they're heading, they're leading the country to, then we would stand up. So for me, it's a combination of all those many things. Call it also maybe some element of hero. You know, in Islam, when you talk about worshipping a human being, it's almost blasphemous. But it's sort of like hero worship, you know? That this guy is above all the rules and regulations and the laws, and even the spiritual guy is above.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of all that, in my view.
Let's take a call. Going to the phone line, 0719-012-600. Speak to Sheikh. Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome is on the line. Lydia in Parklands, good morning.
Yes, hello, Spice FM. Thank you for your good debate. And I would like to, I'm a Catholic, and I would like to thank this Muslim leader for his excellent work that he's doing to help Kenya to be a peaceful country. I really want to thank him for his good work. And what I would like to also tell him, or at least request him, in today's news they said these honest hard workers have been arrested for selling new plastic. I don't see that it is a crime to sell new plastics by honest hard workers. What NEMA and they should do is to arrest those who are littering the streets, the storm drains, the rain drains, the rivers, the lakes, the seas. They are the ones who should be arrested, who are throwing plastics in the wrong places. But honest hard workers selling new plastics, that is not a crime.
All right, thank you, Lydia.
I would like to request this Muslim leader to please tell the government they are corrupt to arrest new plastic sellers. They are honest hard workers.
Sheikh, up to you. What do you say to that?
Well, I think no, we have laws in place. I want to believe we have laws that address all these issues. You know, our problem, Eric, in this country is not lack of laws. We have very good laws. And that's why if you ask me, even the Constitution is still very good. We can still work with it. The problem is implementation. We are having corruption. It's not because there are no laws to arrest and address corruption. It's because we don't apply the law. And even when we apply selectively. So those are things that can be dealt with effectively if we decide we are going to apply our laws strictly and nobody is above the law, and without favor and without also dealing with the poor differently from when we deal with the big fish. So for me, I'll tell Lydia, thank you for that concern, Lydia. I can see you're really concerned about the people who are trying to earn an honest living and they're being harassed. I think it's just calling upon, and government is listening. Government has its ears all over. I'm sure they're listening to this. I hope they're going to take it. Just apply the laws without being selective.
Now that you've actually talked about the Constitution a number of times, 10 years down the road after promulgation of the 2010 Constitution, you participated in the Bombers Constitution, getting all the way to the draft. Looking at the implementation of this Constitution, score of 1 to 10, 10 being very good, 1 being don't even bother. How would you rank it?
A 3 out of 10. Without even bashing an eyelid, I'm telling you, 3 out of 10. That is the best we have done.
What about the other 7? What is it that we should have done and that we haven't done?
Implementation, my brother. Implementation. Look at it this way. Look at the kind of integrity that we are seeing every day from our leaders. Yet, we have a whole chapter talking about leadership and integrity. Not a single clause in that chapter has been implemented. You know, so we just need to implement. Okay, Sheria ziko nzuri sana, lakini we have not worked with these laws. So I think for me, we need just to implement. It just remained as ink on paper. It is just ink on paper. Our constitution is just ink on paper to a large extent. Implementation.
Why do you think we have not implemented it?
Okay, the constitution does not implement itself. You know, we have institutions that have been charged with the responsibility of making sure that the constitution is implemented. But we can see what is happening. See what is happening to the 2/3 gender rule. See what is happening to integrity. See what is happening to hate speech. people are, every day they are caught up with hate speech, but nothing is being done. So the institutions and the individuals, each person should take their responsibilities seriously without looking back or waiting for a call from a big office somewhere. Just do your work. Do your work. And corruption also is contributing to this. Corruption cuts across everything here. The reason why we don't implement our constitution to a large extent and the other laws, acts of parliament, is because of corruption and also impunity. And you can see it very clearly these days, impunity. Somebody recently was saying you get an order against an individual, you are very sure that order is very likely to be implemented. But if it is an order, a court order against a government institution or a big person somewhere, then you can forget it. So this impunity also. And we are sending the wrong signals now. It's becoming a culture. So and so did this. Nothing happened to them. So I'm going to do it. Nothing will happen to me. So this is the problem that we're having, Eric and Morgan.
Is it possible to separate the state from religion? Is it possible to have both running on their own? Should it or should it be? Should it be?
When talk about state affairs should not be run in a manner that favors one religion as against the other. But total separation, and I'm now talking as a Muslim, there is no separation between state and religion because religion is supposed to guide the running of the state affairs. So there should be no separation in that sense. The separation should be in that when state is running its affairs, it should not favor one religion as against another. That's the way I would look at it. But religion has a very significant role in the affairs of state.
Sheikh, there's been a lot of talk, well, in the recent past, not so much, but there has been talk about what has been referred to as radicalization or radical preaching within Islamic circles. Yeah. What is it that the body of imams in this country has done to, one, deal with the matter? And why I bring it in is because that radicalism is what many people have blamed the rise of terrorism to. So I'd like to know your thoughts. Yes.
Yeah, I'm happy that because I'm deeply involved in the radicalization and countering violent extremism, and especially where my religion has been used by some people to justify these terror activities. I want to agree with it is wrong, and no true religion. I don't want to subscribe to this religion that justifies the killing of people, destruction of property, and creating terror. That is not Islam. Unfortunately, I have no monopoly. I cannot control people who want to misuse religion. And why misuse religion? And I want to tell you this, any religion can be misused. Unfortunately, the current trend now is that Islam is being misused. To the extent that Muga and Eric, today, I go to many people and talk to them, and they tell me when we see a very young Muslim, we see a potential terrorist. A youthful one, we see a current terrorist. And an old one like you, we see a retired terrorist. This is where we are today, okay? The name of Islam has been tarnished by these people. But they have just taken advantage of situations. In Nigeria, if you read the books of Chinua Achebe, you're told, if you see a frog in broad daylight, Sasaba and Chana, when the sun is very hot, crossing the road, it's not normal for a frog to do that. Before you blame the frog, you need to ask yourself, what has made this frog get out of its hibernation? This is the wrong time for the frog to be there. Why is it behaving abnormally? So it is wrong. Our youth are being radicalized and the rest. But have we ever sat down and to find out what are the underlying root causes? A good doctor would not just prescribe medicine, will diagnose. So number one, we say this is bad, terrorism is bad, radicalization is bad, violent extremism is bad. Fine. It was happening in other countries. It has come into our country. It is here. Our young people are being radicalized. Why? It is because of the situation that our youth, and I'm not trying to say there is any justification, but contributing factors.
Yep.
Today, and I've ever done it, I meet some youth, Christians and Muslims, and ask them, would you rather meet with the police at night or with some thugs? Say, I would rather meet with the thugs, not with the police. What does that tell you? That there is a big gap between our security agencies and the public. And that's why community policing has failed. So harassment by security officers has pushed the youth. How many youth do we have out there? Even the ones who are being killed in Madioya and Muranga and other places, the ones who are swamping the rallies, the political rallies, these are youth who are idle. These are youth who are frustrated, graduated 4 years ago, 5 years ago, they have nothing to do, so they are frustrated. So there are so many factors that have made our youth vulnerable. And then on top of that, the use of religion. Let me tell you, religion is the most powerful tool to lead a person in the right direction or the wrong direction. Alice Lakwena, and she called herself prophetess, I don't call her that, she used Christianity to lead people into a revolution. Okay? And the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan in America, they're using religion, the Bible, to come up with a very radical movement. So here, some Muslims, or people who claim to be Muslims, I dare tell them that, are using Islam to radicalize the people. While Islam, in this region, for example, today if I send you to Somalia and tell you, go and preach in the name of Jesus Christ, start a movement, how many followers are you going to get?
How are you going to get in?
Or you will tell me to the Vatican, you send me to the Vatican and say, in the name of Muhammad or Islam, start a movement. I'll be lucky to get out there alive. So these people have brains. They see that the majority of the people here subscribe to this religion. They have certain issues, grievances, whether genuine or not, but they have certain grievances. Religion is very emotive, remember. To many people, religion is unquestionable. Religion promises reward beyond this world. And that's why a young person of 23 strapped himself with explosives. He's lost value of his own life and the lives of other people. He wants to die. It's because somebody has promised him reward beyond this world. Okay? So religion has been misused. Now, let me come now to the religious leaders. Where have we failed the people? Silence. The problem is that we have been pushed to keep quiet. So there are a few people who hold these radical ideas. They have taken advantage of our frustrated youth, our unemployed youth, our very vulnerable youth, and they have used religion because it is very emotive and unquestionable to many people, and this is why we are seeing this movement. And believe me, any ideology can be used to radicalize people. When there are people whose team, whether the team wins or loses, they throw stones, these are radicalized, but not because of religion here. When we have young people who are ready to die because of their political leader, they're also radicalized. The political ideology has been used to misguide these people. So we need to address the underlying root factors. I call them the drivers, the push and the pull factors. We need to address them. Why is it that Ethiopia, which has a border with Kenya, and with the Somali community across the border, we've never heard of a terrorist incident? We've done our research ourselves, because I am in this movement now after the Garissa attack. I am in a movement called BRAVE, Building Resilience Against Violent Extremism. And we discovered it's because the people and the security organs work together. You cross the border at Mandera or Moyale, a small girl herding goats sees you and you are a stranger, they will report to the mother. The mother will immediately go to the nearest police post and report, we have a stranger here. It doesn't happen like that in Kenya. So we need to look at the problem and also the causes of that problem and address both. Otherwise, we'll just be whitewashing. We need to deal with both the symptoms and the causes of this. And I want to tell you again, and I want to say it very loudly, Islam is totally against violent extremism and terrorism. It doesn't matter whether somebody claims that they are doing it in the name of Islam. It's wrong, wrong, wrong. It's wrong for religious leaders to keep quiet. They need to correct misconceptions about religion and tell those people who are using religion wrongly, we need to talk to them. That's all I have to say for now.
Sheikh, this is Ndu, and just asking that question, as you
Yes.
say that even, and you're looking at cases where, I mean, even this week and the week before, reported in the media that government agencies are now looking at ways in which they can stop this radicalization of young people. Are
Yes.
religious leaders in that conversation, or are they watching from the audience and listening to what the government is saying? Because I see it as a perfect opportunity for this marriage to take place between state and religion. This is one example.
Yeah, thank you, Ndu. I don't know, I'm sure you know that in 2016, Kenya came up with a strategy, a national strategy for countering violent extremism, which has 9 pillars. And in most of the counties that we call the hotspots of radicalization, we have what is called a county action plans against violent extremism. And if you look at those 9 pillars, there is a strong element of religion and culture there. And that was informed by religious leaders being consulted. I personally was consulted, and a few other religious leaders were consulted, and we said the religious narrative in the violent extremist ideology can only effectively be addressed by people who have authority in religion and who can understand how the religious teachings have been misused, understand both religious and violent extremist religious narratives, develop effective religious counter narratives and alternative narratives. So we are not spectators in this. I can tell you authoritatively, we are very much part of this. I personally am involved. I talk to people in prisons, even the violent extremist prisoners in prisons.
Yeah.
We go and talk to them with a view of trying to de-radicalize them in a prison. So we are very much part of this conversation.
Okay.
We want to thank you very much, Sheikh, for speaking to us today. Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome is a legal advisor of the Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims. One final message to the people of the Republic.
Hate speech and the consequences of not arresting hate speech, whether from politicians or from anybody. I think Kenyans, we have no other country to go to. This country thinks, will think all of us, and most of the politicians will take off and go unless there is corona. Corona is the only thing that stops people from going to seek medical help outside. So this is our country, it doesn't belong to the politicians. We should not allow anybody, no matter what their position is in this country, to destroy this beautiful country for us. And we are not Kenyans by accident. We are Kenyans by God's divine plan. We have all the right to protect this country. Let the law take its course. Let those who have been caught up in this hate speech thing, let them face the full wrath of the law.
Right.
God bless Kenya.
Asante sana. Sheikh, before you go, we noticed that you are a man who likes using African sayings. So every day on the show, we have the day's proverb by C.T. Muga. Let's hear today's proverb and its application.
Wood touched by fire is not hard to set alight.
Wood touched by fire is not
Yes.
hard to set alight.
A mind already exposed to knowledge is not difficult to educate.
Very good. I agree. Totally agree. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Asante sana.
Asante sana.
Have a good one.
Asante. You too.
So coming to the end of the show and the end of the week as well, a lot of conversations that we've had. We've talked about the role of religion in Kenya's politics. We have talked about the politics in Tanzania and what's happening there. We've talked about teenage pregnancies. What would be your closing comments on that?
Expanding the avenues for opportunities for everyone. Ensuring that hope is based on the understanding that those opportunities are possible. That brings stability because it encourages and it engenders hope.
Opportunities for all.
Opportunities for all.
Very good points.
Well, I think just looking at the effort that needs to be made, then in even if it's looking at those opportunities, the effort that needs to be made, whether you're talking about an election, whether you're talking about, teenagers then involved in sex and then getting pregnant, whether you're talking about religion, really are we actually making an effort? And I think that we'll find that you can get results if you make an effort. And unfortunately, so many things go wrong, not because the conditions are bad, but because enough effort is not being made. So maybe it's time to just put in a little bit more elbow grease to some of these things.
Right. Mine actually is about Tanzania and what we expect to see at the end of this month, going into November. And it's really hoping that the situation in Tanzania doesn't get out of control into a position where the government and the people are not in agreement. What Tundu Lissu, the opposition presidential candidate, has said in terms of demanding that the best things happen, we hope at least some of those concerns would be addressed and that they'd be able to reach an amicable solution before they get to the election. We thank you very much for listening to us, and also for speaking to us via our phone lines, social media, and SMS number. Join us again next week, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. CT Muga, Ndu Oko, and Eric Latif saying goodbye and have a lovely weekend. Now until 3 o'clock, as always, is uninterrupted music, and then you have Monique coming with Spice Drive to take you home, and 7 to 10 is the Adults in the Room. Good morning, it's now 10 o'clock.